Welcome everyone to Paranormal Round Table. I'm your host Josh Turner, and this is the show. Start off with something here. All right, guys. Can everybody hear me? Sorry it took so long, man. I had a long day. I was at the cardiologist today, checking on my heart. So they said I don't have one. I don't know what I'm going to do about that. If I only had a brain. Greetings, everybody. I'm joined tonight by my esteemed colleague,
the one and only, the Mushu,
and his little dog,
the Banjo, the Bandit. Nellie asked me to bring him. She said he just sits at the front door, staring at it if I'm not there. So
that's not true. She just don't want to deal with him because he'll go in the room and pee on stuff.
Is that what you do?
That's nice. Whatever makes it work. Give me my glasses, please.
Okay.
I got some things we got to talk about. I got a guest to come on, and we're running behind here, guys. Like I said, I didn't get hardly any sleep. I had to get up early, and then by the time I got back home, just the day got away from me, and I'm sorry. I wanted to answer a few of these complaining messages I've been getting. And just explain to people, because, you're my lovely audience, and I think you deserve an explanation for my horrible behavior, as of always. Hey, Anthony, keep an eye on him. Make sure he doesn't wet on something. He likes to release of the urine. This is Tony's dog, Banjo. He likes to mark his little territory. He's a small dog, but he finds the most inopportune thing and places and things to urinate on. He's a wetter. So, Josh Turner at PRTpodcast.com. Josh Turner at PRTpodcast.com. That's the coordinates you can reach me at, or you can send me a friend request on Facebook. If I don't know who you are, then chances are I may not approve it, because if you don't tell me, hey, I'm a listener of the show. Okay, because then I'm not going to approve it. So Instagram 940 is also my handle. Is Instagram 940. Josh Turner 940 on Instagram. Josh Turner 940. So hit me up on those two places. I don't really do Twitter. It's stupid. You can only put like a couple sentences, and I'm eating at the big buildings. It's goofy. It's childish. That's why the kids gravitate toward it. It's silly. But a lot of people do it. That's why people go there, because there's a lot of boneheads that use it. I'm just not one of them. I just can't. I've tried a few. It's just not for me, dude. So I'm going to tell you right now, most of the time I get comments, it's very positive. I get a lot of good feedback, people saying a lot of nice things, whatever. But there's a few times when people say things, and I thought it'd be funny to point that out really quickly. And then we're going to get into some weird stuff. This guy, Christopher Nazi, I don't know, whatever. He says, on the comment section of the last video, he says, if you're looking for paranormal content, abandon hope, all ye who enter here. Out of a typical 3-hour live stream, there'll be maybe a half hour of the paranormal and about 2.5 hours of rambling, bull, caca. But that's not the word he used. He was using profanity. He says, rambling bullcaca about work, family, food, etc. On the Friday show, which seems to have disappeared, Josh always complains that more people should listen to the live stream. Newsflash, Josh, newsflash. He says, make the live stream, in all capitals, make the live stream all about the paranormal. You will have tons of listeners here. Newsflash, I already do. So thank you for that, sir. Now go stick your head back in the sand down by the river.
I mean, what more can you ask for? 30 whole minutes of the paranormal.
Exactly. That's what you deserve. God, good gosh. This guy.
And that's already so tough to bring out, really. I mean.
And then this other person is saying that, says, I really like the Friday podcast. Way better, short, succinct, get the stories and get out. This guy's got a lot of time. He's one of those people that's brushing his teeth and he's got his foot up and he's putting the bread in the toaster with his feet while he's brushing his teeth. You don't have much time. This guy,
a shaver and a driver kind of guy.
That is, yeah, he is the guy that is like, he's eating breakfast while he's eating the bowl of cereal while he's driving with his knee. He doesn't have much time. This guy's, he's in a hurry, dude. And his name is Taja, I don't know, some stupid. Anyway, he says here, these live streams always go on for hours of whining about who done wrong with the bad guy of the week, who was the good guy, but now is the bad guy, but might be the good guy. And again, next month it becomes very tedious. For some big tough Texans, y'all sure seem to whine a lot. Ever hear of the strong silent type? Please go back to the podcast. Well, here's the thing. I hear you. But sometimes people need to be straightened out and things need to be straightened out so we can move forward as a community. So that's that. But the strong silent type, let me show you what that would look like. And your inner monologue is like, why am I here? Why do I have a talk show? I'm the strong silent type. Yes, I have heard of the strong silent type. Okay? I think Buster Keaton was pretty strong. He was in silent movies, and he jumped around and did all kinds of stuff without saying a word. Maybe you should go watch those. That's kind of more your speed, dude. And don't show up at my show anymore. Just if you're in the chat, leave right now. The both of you. I don't need you. You don't need to be here. It's really stupid. Then Christopher says, what happened to the real show? Is it ever coming back? Somebody from the PRT team replied, okay, I saw that. I thought it was funny. No, it's gone forever. You must be deaf as week after week we bring on guests and tell multiple stories. You complain because we don't perform like robots, telling stories for 3 hours. Why don't you go to better channels that give you so much better content? That way we don't have to look at your silly comments, which is basically whining lies. Don't even know which person of the team that did. Was that you? Okay, well, anyway, somebody did it. That was a pretty good answer. There's when it shows the Paranormal Round Table logo, it could be one of 5 people, so we don't know exactly who said that. But anyway, I laughed. I thought it was funny. And Wayne Graham says, this show just gets worse every time I look at it. So this was my response using the PRT logo, okay? So I responded to this one. I said, then by all means, stop looking at it. You were definitely in the minority, so do everyone a favor and go away. Why do you feel the need to comment? Just watch your buddy's show. Because I know who that, I'm pretty sure I know who that is and where he's coming from. So, anyway, you know, then Demetrion Mason says, this website is trash. I came here looking for an interesting insight into these subjects, but the host spends literally 85% of 2 hours. Okay, show goes on for about 3, so he obviously wasn't paying attention at all on things that have absolutely nothing to do with paranormal. But So what people don't understand is, and then this guy, Chris, comes back and he says, too bad he spends much time talking about things that have nothing to do with the paranormal. This is why I hate live streams. I don't care about anyone's personal life, their trials and tribulations. My kid was sick, whatever. I don't want to hear about paranormal incidents. I want to hear about paranormal incidents. I would estimate that less than 25% of this nearly 3-hour show is stuff most of us actually want to hear. And then he just keeps on. He goes, I can't get past it. I don't care about his personal life and his family. You don't care about me or my personal life or my family, okay? So do not watch my show. The live stream incorporates the whole spectrum. I'm a human being, and I'm up here talking. I'm not a transhuman like you. I'm sorry. I am not Isaac from Orville or Data from Star Trek. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. I'm just, you're a ridiculous person. But you made it on the show. You managed to talk enough trash that you made it on the show. Now you can deal with the trolling. Why is it awesome exactly? Because somebody said it was awesome. Why would anyone want to hear most of this rambling beat bull? There he goes, cussing again. We're here to listen to reports of the paranormal. Have you perhaps tricked yourself into believing that you're Josh's friend or something? Why would anyone want to listen to this non-paranormal related parts of the... So, Anthony, if you do me a favor, can you block Christopher Nazi from commenting on the show anymore? So that was your last hurrah, Chris. Thank you. You've been insulting, and you were entertaining, though. It was entertaining, because if it was entertaining, I wouldn't put it on here, because this show's about entertainment, right? We're going to do paranormal stuff, and we're going to talk, and I'm going to make you laugh. That's who I am. When I come out here and I'm giving you everything that's the real me. I'm sorry that you don't care about my family, and you don't care about me. I don't care about you. I don't give a crap. But feel good about yourself, because you managed to talk enough trash to get my attention. Because, it is what it is. Who cares, dude? I'm not going to back down or shy away. One thing that's never going to happen, too, I'm never going to let people just run roughshod over me. People are like, oh, you're shouldn't let them talk. If you let them continue, then it's like a virus. It spreads. And then everybody starts going, yeah, this guy. And then they don't realize that a guest comes on and talks for an hour, at least a solid hour, and that you told 5 stories. So I work all week to get a show put together, 4 to 5 stories, and then an hour-long guest. And then I get accused of talking, rambling about nothing. Because last week I was feeling playful, and I did some skits, and I said some funny stuff. That wasn't premeditated either. Just, it comes out. But excuse me for being a human being and not a robot that spits out stories. Now, in my robot voice, I will tell you the first story. There was a guy from eastern Tennessee. He had a story to tell. He is afraid for his family. Him and his friend were riding their bicycles. This happened in 1977. He is terrified. He was 7 years old. He went into the cave and saw things that to this day shake him up. Sometimes he cannot sleep. They were reptilian vampires. Next story. That man was driving Louisiana. He saw a Bigfoot run across the road. It wiped a booger on his, in. Goodbye. We're in, we're out. You will not hear of my family or who I am or what I do. Another man saw a spaceship land. It looked like an egg. And out of it came a man that said, Nanu, Nanu. Somebody says, horrible robot voice, bro. You know what? I'm sorry, Steve. I'm trying, man. I can talk like this. Or I can talk like this. I mean, what do you want me to do? How do you want me to do this? Okay?
Sounds like someone was amazing dumb.
I will keep my arms out like this. Like, So, why is he awesome? Why do you think he's awesome? Why do I have to put no less than 8 comments on the comment section to get my people's attention? Yes, you're my audience, my people. I'm somebody. I'm Chris Nazi. I don't see you in the chat, so obviously you're not even a subscriber, because you can't talk without being a subscriber on here. So I wonder about this guy because I mean, like he is so angry. Next he'll be messaging me somehow. He'll get a hold of me somehow and be like, "You want to fight? You want to fight? Yeah, you know what? I'm 200 pounds. Or I'm solid muscle. I eat my cereal, and it's not even good, tasty cereal. It's kashi, and it tastes horrible. I eat nothing but crap that tastes bad, so I can look, like half of you, look like half a man." They always brag about how crappy the stuff is that they eat. I was eating dinner the other day, and this person was like table over, and they're like, "I don't eat like this, but maybe once a month," and they're enjoying their meal, and I'm like, "Wow, that sucks to be you." They're like, "Oh, is it because of money?" "Oh no, I just like to torture myself." Preliminaries before I go to hell. So when I go to hell, it won't be as bad. I'll be used to it. I've already been, life's already been horrible.
Put through the ringer.
There you go. Is this yes, this is a boar's tusk. Actually, somebody at the heart doctor's office today. I know you don't want to hear about my life, but I was at the heart doctor today getting a echocardiogram, and the heck was that?
He's coughing.
And he's coughing? What, has he got COVID or something? Get him out of here.
Well, it's about 8 o'clock, so.
Well, it is. It's after 8 o'clock.
Oh, no,
so
man,
we're screwed.
Here.
So somebody said Lord Worthington. So anyway, we'll do that voice. So anyway, the woman goes, "Is that a tiger claw?" And I was like, "No, ma'am, it's not." And she didn't sound like a goofball or anything. I just said, "Look, it's not." The first person to think that. But this woman, she sent me a message. "If you, Josh Turner, I'm never going to watch your show again. Tigers are majestic creatures." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" So I asked this woman, what are you screaming about? You can see all capitals, She's like, "You proudly wear the claws of a tiger around your neck." Comparing me to the Tiger King from Oklahoma or whatever. The guy's in prison. She said, "People that kill majestic animals go to prison. Just ask the Joe the Tiger," whatever his name is. I said, "Okay." I was like, "This is a boar's tusk, not a tiger claw." She's like, "Well, boars are majestic animals too." And I'm like, maybe on Game of Thrones, but did we come back? Yeah.
No, we're back. We're back.
Okay. That's ridiculous. Anyways, maybe Christopher got mad and went and did some hacking or something. I don't know. What does it say? We'll have to restart another what?
Well, we thought it froze.
We'll take that off. And also put up the Eventbrite link to the Texas Bigfoot Conference.
Whoa. Who's saying Banjo's at fault here now?
Banjo might have wetted on it, dude. He does that.
I don't like this kind of talk.
Well, it's
just heresy.
I will allow it. I will allow it.
You allow heresy near Banjo? Let me cover his ears.
That's you. You're in Banjo.
Thank you, Steven. Just make like 40 of your most trusted mods and all the jerks will be taken care of quickly. That's what Texan Bigfoot Michigan Rob did, and it seems to work.
Yeah. The thing is that I care about my audience. I care about my listeners. But when you say things like what this guy was saying, I don't care about you, I don't care about your family, I don't want to go. There's a million other podcasts you could be listening to. Why are you wasting your time with us? Stop bothering me and the other guests and posting it all over the comment section. Nobody cares about you. Nobody wants to hear what you have to say. You were definitely in the minority, so go away. Hey, got a question for you, Master of Communications over here. Nina Sinclair says, "Ever hear of the Banjo Bowl?" Why is this not on there?
What?
The viewer count. I can't see it.
Oh, yeah. It disappeared.
Yeah. It's up there, right there. There. Unlock that.
The chat disappeared too, didn't it?
Yeah, the chat's not on there. It's on the other side. Getting some things restored here, folks.
I don't know if I would call boars majestic.
When they're bacon, they are, I guess. But I don't even eat bacon. It's too salty. I don't even eat pork anymore. I barely eat beef, which I'm glad about because I don't like. I like cows and. I haven't been really feeling bad. Somebody said, "Glad I'm feeling better." I just had a irregular heartbeat. So my wife was like, "Hey, you're going to the hospital." So I ended up in the hospital for 6 hours. And then they said, "Hey, your heart's beating irregular." Well, see ya. That's $1,000.
Give you a crisp high five.
And then they said, "Go to a heart doctor," which I did.
What?
I just got an echocardiogram done today. We'll see what happens.
Okay.
Somebody said boars taste. Yes, they do. They don't eat them. You can get the small. Somebody was bragging the other day about how much they love to eat them, and I was like, "Whoa, you're a stronger person than me." You can enjoy. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to call and bring my guests on because it's already almost 9, so I need to get that done. And then when the guest is done, I'm going to tell you a couple of incredible stories, and then I have to go record because me and Barton are still on our recording. We recorded with I think 8 or 9 different people now. And so tonight we're recording with Steve Stockton. Tomorrow we're recording with Jesus Payan. That's what he calls Jesus, is how he says his name, not Jesus. If you don't know who he is, go look him up. He's been on Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul. Anyway, he's an actor, and we're going to record with him. And he's probably going to be a live stream guest pretty soon, too.
I believe he's Tuco's bodyguard, right?
He's Tuco's bodyguard.
I love Tuco, man. He's such a good character.
So that's we're doing that tonight and tomorrow, and we're still just trying to get all these interviews done, and then we're going to drop a bunch of them. So let's get the guest on here. This thing is like, okay, that's great.
I'm calling you, dude.
You're calling them?
No.
Yeah. Bear with me, folks. I'm tired as heck. I had this many messages. Didn't even get to answer them today. Let's see. And there it is.
Hello.
Hey, Craig, how you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Just had to go to the heart doctor today, but I mean, hopefully it'll be, everything will be fine, and I'll be able to go to your...
That's not good.
Yeah. Well, it's okay. It was time. I needed to get an echocardiogram done, but that'll be, hopefully it'll come back. Everything will be fine, and we're still planning to come down to the conference. So, Craig, introduce yourself to the audience.
Oh, I'm already on. Well, I'm Craig Woolheater, co-founder of the Texas Bigfoot Research Center back in 1999, and host and organizer of the Texas Bigfoot Conference since 2001, which the first conference was September 15, 2001, which was 4 days after 9/11, but we still had nearly 150 people that came out to check out the first conference, and been going strong since.
And what are the dates for that conference?
The dates for this year's conference are the 14th, 15th, and 16th of October. The actual event itself is on the 15th. We have a Friday night dinner and special presentation that Friday on the 14th, and the 16th the conference is all day long, and then a catered dinner with other special presentations that Saturday night, and then Sunday is a private lunch that you have to get an invitation to.
Am I invited to that?
We'll see after the night's over.
Oh man, we'll see.
No, of course you're invited, man. Your whole entourage is invited.
Oh, good. All 72 of them. Cool. We'll be there.
That's right. That's not 72 virgins, is it?
No, that's not. I am not. No, I don't. Not doing that. I'll tell you what.
Okay.
I'll tell you what I will do though is I'll bring 72 hoodlums. You know.
Well, I figured that already.
Yeah. Well, some of them are your regular people there, so I'm going to be there with Ken and yeah. So, and who all is going to be speaking? Let us know the speakers.
Well, speaking, we've got Adam Davis, formerly of the UK, now an American citizen who has probably been on expeditions searching for the most different number of cryptids ever of anybody. I mean, he's looked for everything from the Yeti to Bigfoot to the Mongolian death worm to the into the Congo for the Mokele Mbembe. I mean, he's looked for everything. So he'll be there and talking about his adventures and probably some misadventures. Lauren Coleman will be presenting. Lyle Blackburn, whose new book will be out and available at the conference that I wrote the foreword for. I should have written the book, but I'm a procrastinator, and Lyle's not. So he wrote a book about Texas Bigfoot. And Ken Gerhardt, as you mentioned, he'll be there. Shelley Covington, Montana, and Sibylla Irwin, who is a Bigfoot eyewitness sketch artist. Of course, I bet she'd also do Dogman as well.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the things that Lyle told me about writing that book, the Texas Bigfoot book, which I'm waiting on my copies so I can do them for the giveaways, but one of the things that he told me about it was he wanted to get it done before someone else from Texas wrote it. And so he was like, he goes before Ken or somebody else gets to it, because they'll do it, and he just, there was so much to choose from. And when he unveiled that book, I was upstairs in his bathroom, and I came down, and it was me and him and Ken and Mushu here, and then Anthony and my wife, and he had it, and they waited until I got down from.
Oh, it wasn't all of you were not in the bathroom at the same time.
No. They waited until I came down from his haunted bathroom.
Okay.
Dude, he has like the bathroom in his old house has like mirrors facing each other, and dude, I'm always freaked out by that. But he says that house wasn't haunted, but maybe the one he's living in now might have some weird stuff going on. So maybe at the conference we can. Yeah, I'm gonna get really drunk and just walk up. I'm just gonna let you know, and I'm gonna walk up on stage and be like, "Lyle's house is haunted. He needs to tell you all about it," and then I'm gonna drop the mic. But then I'll go back up on stage and interrupt some more people. I'm just letting you know this is kind of how I roll.
That's how you roll. Plus, and you do roll the mic drop into it.
Yes,
I guess.
Yeah. And
wow.
Yeah, and we'll have some fun. So you've been doing this conference for how long?
Well, the very first one was in 2001. So last year was the 20th anniversary. So I guess this is actually the 21st.
Jeez.
There's been a year here and there where it didn't happen. In 2006, we didn't do one because we did actually did a 6-month co-curated a museum exhibit with the Institute of Texan Cultures, which is actually a campus of the University of Texas at San Antonio. But we did a 2,000 square foot Bigfoot exhibit in the summer of 2006, actually from the spring through the summer. And we did 4 half-day conferences that year. We brought in a lot of people, and it was a very, very popular exhibit that ran for 6 months. And so we didn't do a conference that year because I didn't have time to really spend any time on it, because I'd spent all summer, well, and the year and a half before, working on this museum exhibit. But like I said, brought it back to Jefferson. It moved off to Tyler for a couple of years, and in 2014 I brought it back to Jefferson, which is where it was originally done there, which is it's also the official Bigfoot capital of Texas. Jefferson, Texas is. So it deserves to be here, and it has been back since 2014.
Yeah, that area is known for being Bigfoot. It's the Big Thicket. It's
well,
right there.
actually, this up here is actually the Piney Woods. The Big Thicket's a little
Further south.
a little farther south, but there's tons of reports from this area, and it's Cattle Lake is there, which is, especially at night, a pretty creepy lake. It's the only natural lake in the state of Texas.
All the others are rivers. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, dammed up rivers, and this one is actually a natural lake, and it's a cool place. Got the cypress trees and the Spanish moss and the mist or the fog rising up off the water, and it's just really a really cool environment. And like I said, a lot of Bigfoot sighting reports in and around Cattle Lake, as well as Jefferson, and this whole area of northeast Texas.
I guess I just still look at it as the thicket, just because the woods are so thick up there around Cattle Lake. There are still spots around that lake that cannot be mapped. Like, it's not. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the Big Thicket does kind of, it's a southeast Texas, and, works its way up to the Piney Woods, and just kind of a continuation up all the way to, the point where the 4 states come together: Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Louisiana.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because when I look at the area around Cattle Lake, I mean, I've been all over that area, and it's so dense, it's so thick. There's so much woods. People don't realize that. Like, I've had people tell me, they're like, "I thought Texas was a desert." I'm like, "Yeah, in the west, far west."
Yeah. Well, those people that watch Dallas on TV and, just expected tumbleweeds blowing across.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and people, I always thought that show was funny, too, because it was Dallas, but yet Houston is really where the oil was at. And so,
true.
I was always kind of like, as a kid, because, the Houston Oilers, and I was like, why is Dallas the show about the oil? So I asked my dad, and my dad's like, people are idiots. And I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. They think we all wear 10-gallon hats and ride around, on horses.
Cowboy boots and have belts with our names on the back of them.
And part of my family does do that. I'm not gonna lie, I have some family that they're very country, and I'm proud of my country heritage. But that is true. But what's crazy though is just the perception that people have. And there was somebody that asked me, they're like, "Do you have?" This lady asked me, she's like, "Do you guys have Bigfoot down in Texas?" And I'm like, "Absolutely." She thought, I guess, it was just Dogman and whatever down here, and I said, "No." Right. And she's like,
"Well, and chupacabras."
Yeah, and chupacabras. Yeah. And she goes, "Well, where do they hide?" I said, "All over East Texas."
About, because there's such a stigma with saying that you've seen one of these, creatures, a Dogman or Bigfoot or whatever, that, people a lot of times don't talk about it. I've talked to probably over 300 witnesses over the years, and many of them have, I'm talking grown men broke down crying because they've never been able to tell anybody about their encounter, because maybe they did tell somebody and were ridiculed or laughed at or called names or crazy or something. So I've talked to men that have said, they've never even been able to talk to their wife about it, but it's a very cathartic experience for them to actually talk to somebody that will listen to them and not react critically.
Yeah, you've fielded a ton of Bigfoot reports. Like you said, you could have written the book, about it. Lyle beat us all. Because my next project, as soon as I'm done with this Dogman book, which I'm hoping is going to be done in time for Christmas, and then I'm going to be on the Bigfoot book that I'm already kind of getting started on. But it's not going to be a Texas Bigfoot book. It's just going to be just Bigfoot in general. Now you are an experiencer. You have had your own experience with Bigfoot. Can you tell us about that?
Sure. I'd been interested in the subject since I was a kid. Growing up here, in the DFW area, there was the case of the Lake Worth monster in 1969, a creature that was generally thought of to be a white or gray colored Bigfoot that was seen by hundreds of people, actually, the summer of 1969. We're talking basically about 20 miles or so from downtown Fort Worth, out at a reservoir, a man-made reservoir called Lake Worth, that was seen by hundreds of people, some of them, even law enforcement officers and such that saw this. It was generally regarded as, the most seen local creature, witnessed by the most witnesses. And it became a big deal, and like things happen, all the armed monster hunters come out and want to patrol the area and be the one to, to bag a Bigfoot, and, created quite a lot of havoc there. That area is a city. It's owned by the city of Fort Worth now. The Lake Worth, it's a nature refuge. It's got a herd of buffalo out there, but, it's still wild and woolly out there, and you can walk around in the same places where supposedly the Lake Worth monster roamed around in 1969. But that's what started my interest in as a kid. And then a couple of years later, I saw The Legend of Boggy Creek at the theater when it made its way through national distribution in 1973, and just fascinated me. It was, especially back then, it was a creepy, kind of scary movie, but it still holds up, and it's been remastered and everything, where it's in 4K and Blu-ray, and it's a great movie. And most people, actually a lot of people from wherever that saw that movie is what generated their interest in Bigfoot, the subject. But especially down here in the South, the majority of the people that are into Bigfoot, are, whether they're enthusiasts or researchers or investigators or, whatever, podcasters, can point to The Legend of Boggy Creek as being the genesis of their interest in Bigfoot. And so that started me off as a kid, but I kind of faded away from the subject growing up, and until I was living in the Dallas area, and for Memorial Day weekend in 1994, myself and my youngest brother and some friends and such decided to take a road trip to New Orleans for the long weekend. So, this is pre-GPS, MapQuest, Google Maps, any of that stuff. So, it's 1994, May of 1994. So we, threw open our road map and plotted our course, what looked to be the best route to take. And we left Dallas probably around 5:30 or so on Friday morning, which got us to New Orleans, a little after lunchtime that Friday. Well, as we're driving through central Louisiana heading to New Orleans, mid-morning, everything was fine and dandy. It was bright sunlight out, and so we just made our way for a weekend of, I hate to say it, but it was actually, some debauchary.
Well, you're going to New Orleans and you're a young guy. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
I was 34, but we had a great time and with friends, and it was a weekend of eating and drinking adult beverages. And anyway, we went down in 5 different cars. There were 12 of us total, and for the weekend. And everybody, we caravan down there, but everybody coming back, just left town whenever they, needed to be back in the Dallas area. So all 5 of the vehicles set out separately for home. And my vehicle was myself, my girlfriend at the time, and a friend who lived in the same apartment building that I did. So we didn't set out New Orleans till about 9 o'clock or so Monday night, just wanting to enjoy the vacation and eat some more good Cajun food. So we set out about 9 o'clock. My friend had to be at work the next morning, so she slept in the back seat of my vehicle. And my girlfriend and I didn't have to work, so we were awake. Of course I was awake. I was driving, but she was awake as well on the drive back. And so we now head back to Dallas. We swing around the Baton Rouge area in Louisiana, and we're now on Highway 71, the same highway we drove down on the way down Friday. But now it's, night. It's dark. There's this 2-lane highway. Those were quotation marks I was doing in my fingers right there. Was a very lonely, desolate road out in the middle of nowhere at night. And so we were just driving, heading towards Alexandria, Louisiana, to then carry on to Shreveport and on to Dallas from there. But as we are heading up northwest on Highway 71, like I said, there was no traffic. There was nothing was lit, at least on this stretch we were at this time. And in the headlights of my vehicle, my girlfriend and myself saw a figure off to the right of the road. From the edge of the road on the right-hand side there was a tree line there that we couldn't see beyond at night. And, it was only 25, 30 feet out to the tree line. And on the left-hand side of the road, it was just a big swampy area. Well, as we're driving, and my headlights catch this figure off to the right of the road, midway between the edge of the road and the tree line. So it's, not far at all. And as we get closer, we see that it's an upright figure. And it's an upright figure on 2 legs covered with hair that in my headlights appears to be gray colored. So, we see this for, at speed, maybe 7-8 seconds total. But as we get closer, we can distinguish details that it's actually something that's on 2 legs and walking parallel to the road. And like I said, it's covered with hair, and the hair looks grayish or white, well, grayish in the, in my headlights. And it's actually moving parallel to the road. As we go by it, we can see a pretty good look at it, in the headlights. And it never deviated from its path. It never looked up. It was about 7 foot tall, covered with gray hair, on 2 legs, and kind of slumped over in the front. Well, as we passed, my girlfriend and I looked at each other and said simultaneously, "Did you just see what I just saw?" And we agreed we had. And I asked her what she thought she saw, and she said, "I think I saw a Bigfoot." And I said, "Well, we've got to stop." And she very, very made her point clear that she did not want to stop. Few choice words. We weren't going to stop. And so I didn't stop. But To this day, I regret that I didn't stop. I don't know what I would have done. I wanted to get a better look at what we saw, but we very shortly, in about 10 minutes, came into a small town called Bunkie, Louisiana. And, at this time, it was about 11:30 at night on Monday night, a holiday, Memorial Day, May 30th. And there was nobody out, no lights on, no nothing open. And so we just continued through town. And we came upon a small church on the right-hand side of the road with a light pole out in the parking lot. And so we pulled in there and to talk about what we had seen, what we'd experienced, what we encountered. And we pulled in there for about 10 or 15 minutes, talked about, but between my girlfriend and myself, my friend was still asleep in the back seat. She never woke up. But, we started discussing details, what we had seen, and pretty much came to the conclusion that we had seen a Bigfoot. I don't know what else it could have been. It was not, a burned out tree stump. It wasn't a hunter in a ghillie suit. It certainly wasn't somebody out in a gorilla suit trying to hoax somebody. It wasn't a horse or a cow or any known wildlife. So to me, that pretty much answered the question of what it was. We then, got back on the road, and my friend had to be at work the next morning, so we got back on the road. We still had about, 5.5 hours or so to Dallas, and it was now about midnight. So we continued on to Dallas, but we didn't really talk about it as we were driving. It was just, we had discussed it when we stopped, but we just carried on home. And even after getting home, didn't really talk about it. Didn't talk about it to anybody, family or friends or anything. It's just something very strange that happened to us. And, this is still prior. I'm still 3 years away from having internet access. And so when I did get internet access, I started looking up, Bigfoot in Texas, Bigfoot in Louisiana, and there was certainly not anything on the internet like there is now as far as websites and all kinds of stuff. But there was some message boards and forums and such, and so I logged in and signed up, and there was a community of people that were into this, even in those days, even researching this mystery. And so I started meeting people and talking about what had happened, and met a gentleman, Luke Gross, that also lived in Northeast Texas, and we started the Texas Bigfoot Research Center in June of 1999, and put up a website, started taking sighting reports, people wanting to get involved with what we were doing, and the organization took off, and we had gone to a conference in Ohio, the Ohio Bigfoot Conference. This was in 2000, and this event it was the 12th annual. The event had started in 1989 and was an annual event. And so we went up and met people and networked, and I got the wheels were turning in my head, and I was like, well, there's nothing like this in Texas. I bet I could put something like this together. And so, started working on an idea to plan a conference. My parents had moved to Jefferson, here where I hold the conference, before that, and had bought a bed and breakfast, and my mom was on the events committee for the Bed and Breakfast Association. And so I had resources to plan an event. It just so happened that was why it's here in Jefferson, not also there's a long history of Bigfoot sightings in the area, and Cattle Lake is here. But the real reason it's here is because my folks were here and had a bed and breakfast, and that's how I got started planning the event. And went back to Ohio in, I believe it was April of 2001 to the second time I'd gone, and was already, well into the planning phase of my event, which was going to be September 15th, 2001. Well, it just so happened that was 4 days after 9/11. So I had a decision to make: to carry on with the event the best we could, or to just scrap it. And talking amongst other members of the group who volunteered to help pull it off, we decided to go ahead and hold the event, even though two of our speakers were unable to fly in because of the restriction on flying after 9/11. So we still had a successful event the first year. We had nearly 150 people that showed up. And that was the start of the Texas Bigfoot Conference. And been doing it most years ever since. And it's the city has really gotten behind it. In 2005, they issued a town proclamation that the third weekend in October, which we had moved the event from September to October, it established it the third weekend in October. And the town proclamation that the third weekend in October in Jefferson was officially Texas Bigfoot Weekend. They issued another town proclamation in 2016 for the 15th annual event. And then in 2018, a town proclamation was issued and signed by the mayor that made proclaimed that Jefferson was the Bigfoot capital of Texas. And so that's why the conference is still here. I've moved here myself from the Dallas area the 1st of January, and have taken up residence here and planning other events here in town and nearby. And things are taking off. And like I said, the Chamber of Commerce procured a Bigfoot statue, and it's here in town. And most of the restaurants here in town have a dish named after Bigfoot burger or Sasquatch something or other. And most of the souvenir gift shop kind of places like the General Store and several other places have a lot of Bigfoot paraphernalia for sale. And so it's really been embraced here and carries on to this day.
Yeah, one of the things you were telling me about Jefferson, and because we were talking about it, and you said that it's haunted too, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of haunted locations here in town. There's on Friday and Saturday nights, there's a guided ghost walk through town that to take you to a lot of the haunted locations, bed and breakfast, hotels, private residences, and such that are supposedly haunted.
Yeah, I think it's odd that there is this Bigfoot activity there, prolific, and then there's all this haunted stuff.
Right.
I mean, I've always wondered that, because it seems like any time, and okay, and I don't know if you know about Cattle Lake. You're living up there, but I mean, when we were in Mineola, okay, and you were at the Bigfoot conference there, which it was weird. It was called the Southeast Texas Bigfoot Conference, but it was in Mineola, which is northeast. I don't know what.
Well, it started out down in Huntsville,
yeah, and
then they decided to take it on the road. As a matter of fact, I think next year it's going to be in Leesville, Louisiana. So it's going to be a Texas Bigfoot conference in Louisiana. So a little confusing.
Yeah, and so when we were there in Mineola, and you were there, and I was there, and I remember talking with Lyle about Into the Big Thicket, which is a book I think it's written by Rob Riggs. And
Right. He passed away in 2015. He was actually a speaker at my very first conference in 2001, and then he came back and spoke in 2014, and unfortunately passed away the next year from cancer.
Yeah, it was unfortunate. And that book was interesting because Lyle had asked me at that conference when we had a few minutes of downtime, and we were talking, and he said, "Hey, do you have anything about people seeing like natives? And I told him, I said, in the Big Thicket, I remember that book. I'm pretty sure that was Rob Riggs's book that he talked about the ghost lights, and he talked about the Saratoga lights, which coincidentally, this is off topic from what we're talking about, but it's interesting that the ley line runs from Marfa to Saratoga. And both cities have ghost lights on the edge of their towns, which is really weird. That's kind of a weird thing. I think it's the latitude or whatever. And
I've been there to Bragg Road, which
Bragg
is
Road.
a cool place, and I have seen lights there. Didn't see any Bigfoot, didn't see any Indians, but nor any cowboys for that matter. But did see a strange light in the woods when we were parking a vehicle, and got out and walked around on a intersecting road with Bragg Road there. But about 30 or 40 feet into the woods there, saw a light about the size of a softball, about 3 feet off the ground. And as I watched it, it just the light just shrank in size until it disappeared. And I have no idea what it was, but it was it was not a car headlight. I mean, it was 30 to 40 feet away, and in amongst the trees, and it was really wild. But Rob researched that area, and I believe the tribe was the Karakawa. I believe they were reported to be cannibals, and also reported the wild man of the Big Thicket in that area, as well as the lights and all. And it's a really another really weird area for sure.
Yeah, one of the things I remember reading about was a guy that was climbing a telephone pole, and I believe this was near Caddo Lake, and he got shot in the leg with an arrow. And I remember and he was like climbing a telephone pole, and this was like, I don't know, it wasn't that long, it was like in the 80s or something, but I think Rob had talked about it, and I was talking about it with Lyle, and I said, dude, I can go back and see if I can look that up. I know, I think I need to reach out to David Weatherly, because he, like me, had collected bunches of issues of Fate magazine. Well, I had lost a bunch when I'd moved from my old place, because I had about 10 years worth, and this guy had gotten struck in the leg by an arrow. When he looks down, he sees 3 natives. I mean, they look like Native Americans, and this is like in the early 80s, and he's like, what the heck? And so they walked back into the woods after they shot him, and then he stayed up there for a while, which I guess anybody would, and then he finally came down and ran. But yeah, the Karankawas, they were cannibals. Their big enemy was the Comanches. The Comanches tried to destroy them, which they tried to destroy the Lipan Apache, and they tried to destroy the Tonkawas. They tried to destroy everybody because they were very warlike, and my grandmother was actually half Comanche. But what's crazy is that their reasoning for trying to destroy some of these other natives was because they practiced cannibalism. And the Comanches were not very spiritually inclined. Now, their allies, the Kiowa, they were. What's funny is that the Kiowa are considered an Apache tribe, but the thing is, Apache is really just a Comanche word that means enemy. So it wouldn't apply to the Kiowa. Yeah, it wouldn't apply to the Kiowa because the Comanche were actually friends with them, and the Comanche called themselves the Nirmana or Nirmana, depending on how you pronounce it. But they were very warlike, but they did have a few legends, and they did have a name for Bigfoot too. And so, they weren't real like spiritual. I had somebody trying to tell me, oh, the Comanches, they have all kinds of stories and legends. And I'm like, no, they didn't. Not really. They were big into torture and killing, and they liked to kill people for their scalps. And near Anson, of course, they killed a bunch of people that were working on the Pacific Railroad, and they knew it was them because one of the Texas Rangers had shot one of them, and they found the quay, which was the hairstyle of the Chinese, the railroad workers. And they also like to collect scalps from African Americans because they looked at it like they compared it to buffalo hair, and they like to kill blonde haired people because there weren't many blonde haired people. So they were pretty brutal, and they did a lot of really, really mean, nasty things. But oddly enough, people that were taken captive by the Comanches, if they survived, somebody just said, didn't Comanches have weird punishment? They did. They had one that they called the smoke bat, which is really weird. They hang you upside down and they wrap you in a quilt. And then they put a fire underneath you, and you literally you sweat to death, and you burn up, and the fat falls off. It was really bad. The things that they would do.
Sounds like a human tamale.
Yeah, human tamale, a burrito. Yeah, and they would take like mesquite thorns and poke your eyes out and your eardrums, and then send you into the wilderness to go wander around. They were pretty rough, man. But there were people
send you off. Blind and deaf, huh?
Blind and deaf, yeah. And sometimes even cut your tongue off, too, you're blind, deaf, and dumb. And they would find people wandering around like this, natives, Mexicans, like some of their soldiers wandered off. There was one story that I'd heard right after the Battle of the Alamo. Some Comanches had picked off a few of the Mexican soldiers for no reason other than they were in Comancheria, and the Spaniards had told everybody, don't go to Comanche, stay out of there, because if you go into Comancheria, which is a 400 square mile tract, you run the risk of getting tortured, killed, and it's not fun. It's a brutal way to die. So they basically had picked a few of them off, and the Texans ran into a couple of them later on, or the Tejanos, as they were called, and they were like, what the heck? They couldn't even figure out who this person was because he was wandering. It was something I'd read, historical Texas Rangers. I think it was when I was at the Texas Rangers Museum in Waco. And I think that's what it was. Like somebody from the tour had read this, and he was telling us this story. And I was a teenager, and I was going like, golly, what in the heck? And those were some of my people. I was like, good gosh. But they took this guy, and he was blind, deaf, and dumb, and they never did figure out who he was. But somebody recognized his pants and his boots, and they said, this guy must have been a Mexican soldier. And he was skin and bones, and so for years he lived the rest of his life in San Antonio, and then he died there, and they never knew his name or anything about him because of what the Comanches had done to him, and they had put a big scar on his back. Wow. And it was just a warning to everybody, just stay away from us. But when they would kidnap people, and then they would be recaptured by the cavalry or the federal cavalry after the Confederates were defeated, the federal government came down, we're going to lay down the law and do something, this and that, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, right. It took 23 years later, they still weren't able to corral the Comanches, but they would recapture people, and those people didn't want to go. They didn't want to leave. They wanted to stay with the Comanches because it was such a free way of life, barring the brutality.
As long as you didn't get killed by them.
Yeah, as long as you survive the brutality. Because a lot of times if you were a man, you would be beaten to within an inch of your life. Now, if you were a kid, typically they treated you okay, but if you were a man, they would beat you to within an inch of your life. And then if you were a woman, you'd be forced to marry a Comanche man who had multiple wives, and his wives would mistreat the heck out of you until you knew your place. And so a lot of beatings and things. But then these people would assimilate, and they would just fall into Comanche culture, and they would find Mexican and Texan people living amongst the Comanches, and they would just be like, we don't want to go back, we're fine. So the Texas Rangers or the cavalry would just be like, okay, well, we can't make you go. But if it was a female, they had a policy that they would make them go, but then sometimes the female and their children would just run back to them. Wow. So it was like, I guess, a severe case of Stockholm syndrome, but it happened quite a bit.
Exactly what I was just about to say.
Yeah, very, very weird. Wow. And the Comanches would interbreed with them too. They were just nomadic, warlike people. They called them the Cossacks of the plains, which oddly enough, on my dad's side, I have Cossack too. So I'm pretty.
Isn't that a motorcycle game?
It's actually, yes, it is. It actually is too. But the Cossacks are from the Caucasus region, Ukraine, Russia, and they are a warlike people. The Golovny, the guy that just fought, what's his name, Canelo, which is actually means cinnamon in Spanish, but Canelo. And Golovny is one of like several Cossack fighters that has hit the, and so you have these warlike people, and so I always tell people, I come by it honestly, it's in my blood, on both sides. I don't really have a choice. I'm going to have to be what I am. But
so you're a cannibal?
No. The Comanches were not cannibals. They killed the other tribes, and their reasoning was that they were cannibals. And Dick Richards, actually, you're incorrect about that. They are all Tartars. They're not. Tartars were actually further to the east, and the end of their reign came because of the Cossacks. Cossacks actually defeated them. So yeah, the Cossacks were pretty much undefeated. They even sacked Istanbul and made off with the treasury, and the Sultan at that time. They took his brides, his harem. So it was pretty.
Wow.
Didn't they also send him like a letter?
Yeah, that's a very funny story. If you go and read Cossack, which is Cossacks, now somebody just put it on there. The Cossacks have my respect. Now, if you go and you read about the Cossacks, the letter that they wrote to the Sultan is one of the funniest things I've ever read. And it's funny because I've always been kind of the same way, and I know where I get it from. So that's just I'm kind of that way. I'll tell you a joke before I hit you, but I mean, just. Back on track though, like what we were talking about with the Bigfoot thing, like I think Jefferson is the perfect place to be because when I was driving through there, I was up in Tyler where my nephew's grandmother on his mother's side, I took him up there to see her, and I was looking at the road as I was driving, and at one point my nephew was driving, and we decided to go to Louisiana to go gamble for a little bit.
Right.
And we were driving through those piney woods, and I kept thinking, man, we're going to see a Bigfoot. Like I kept thinking, like a Bigfoot's going to come out. It's just going to come out, man. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I'm just going to see it because it just looks like a place where you would see it. And, there is the Lost Pines that are now a lot of it's been burned up. I think 30% of it over there in Bastrop.
Right.
But that area near Bastrop, I had a friend that used to work near the armory there. And he said that he was driving in one day, and it was a very small garrison they had there, like a National Guard. And he said, dude, I saw a Bigfoot just bent over, and it looked like it was picking up something off the ground like a pine cone, and I was like, holy crap. And he said I nearly wrecked because it was kind of drizzling or whatever. And he says it seems like anywhere there's these big tall trees, that's where they're at. They're just gonna be there. But it does weird me out though. What were you saying, Tony, the other day about Bigfoot and ghosts? You said something.
Yeah, well, this is perfect that you brought up Jefferson again, because I had been meaning to ask. You said that there were ghost tours that they did. I was wanting to know if there was ever any areas where both Bigfoot and any ghost activity were sighted near each other, or if there was any connections between the two that you may have noticed.
I don't know of any connection between the two, but I know historically there have been Bigfoot sightings in or near graveyards. I don't know what the connection would be other than just, out, kind of in the woods and Bigfoot would happen to walk by. But, there is a proliferation of both of those here in town and around town. Like I said, Kettle Lake is kind of a spooky, creepy kind of place. Mm-hmm. And it's a very rare ecosystem there. There's a lot of animals that are found only in that area. We have it's been stocked with paddlefish, the Kettle Lake, trying to repopulate it with the paddlefish that can grow to be really, really big. And I've even heard some people speculate that maybe the Bigfoot eat the paddlefish and that's why they're in the area. I don't know, but I've just heard people mention that before. But there's cool things to do out on Cattle Lake. There's boat tours. I've got a buddy that is a fishing guide, but he also does a nighttime Bigfoot tour out on Cattle Lake. That he'll take people out to areas where, Bigfoot has been seen and stuff like that out on the lake. So it's a really cool place.
Yeah, and during the day it's very beautiful, but at night it gives off a very sinister, swampy quality. It's creepy. It is creepy, that area. I have been there a couple times, and it's just very, there's a lot of stuff to do, like you said. People go fishing out there, and they go hunting out there, whatever they do out in that area. It's all over the place. But you got to be careful. You can get lost out there real easy, too.
Yeah, and there's alligators.
Yeah, oh yeah, they're gators. That's right.
And venomous snakes, and and wild hogs, and all kinds of stuff out in the area that you wouldn't actually want to happen upon.
And I've heard tales of that area of wild hogs reaching up to like 1,000, 1,200 pounds. I've heard a lot of stories like that, and I know that's not unusual like here in Texas, but in that area I heard that they get really big because they can hide out and survive for a long, long time. One of the stories I got, Bigfoot stories, and I'll tell this one. It's not a real long one, but it was pretty telling. There was a guy that was out there fishing, and he was pulling his little boat in, and it wasn't a canoe, but it wasn't a motorboat or anything, and it was him and his brother,
like a John boat or something.
Yeah, and they were pulling it in, and they were going to have to carry it over there. They were going to carry it, and it was only about half a mile back to where they had parked. He had an off-road vehicle he had driven in, and it was deep up in there, and they hear this like hogs squealing, screaming noise, and they look at each other, and they just keep walking, and they're like, okay, there's a hog getting into it with something. Maybe it's coyotes, or they say there's coy wolves there now too, but they didn't know what it was. And when you're walking through that area, you have to watch the ground too, because there's everything from copperheads to rattlers, so you got to be real careful. Water moccasins are bad too. And so he's like, we're just trying to watch where we're walking, and then we just see this thing walk across the trail. And he said, there's no doubt in my mind it was a Sasquatch. It was all black, and it looked at us and opened its mouth, and you could see like canines, but it was just it was a flat-faced, ape-looking kind of a creature, and it had a big hog just slung over its back. And then when it saw them, it got to the other side of the trail and kind of stopped and looked at him. And then he goes, and then we just see it kind of drop the hog and was holding it by its leg. And he's telling me, he's like, we're debating whether we should keep walking, because he goes, I don't know any other way, and I'm not going to run off the trail and get lost or get bit by a poisonous snake. He goes, so I don't know what I'm going to do. And I'm looking at my brother, and we're sitting there trying to figure out what we're going to do. And eventually it just kept walking, and I guess it had its dinner, and so it wasn't interested in them. He said we stood there for probably a solid 10 minutes before we moved, and then we started walking, and we went back to we got the heck out of there. And he goes, dude, we just saw a freaking Sasquatch. But yeah, that was a crazy report, and the guy's name was David, but it was just nuts, man, because you're just out there trying to fish and have a good time, and you just some squatch is out there murdering a hawk. It's not unheard of, dude. I mean, it's just you get so many reports of that out there from the south of the thicket all the way up into the piney woods.
I got we got a report of a similar thing. A guy that was hunting in a tree stand and saw a Sasquatch approach and actually grab a hog and slung the hog up against a tree to kill it, and took off with the carcass. And actually looked back up at him in his tree stand, and as it was walking off, and let out this, he said, just a horrible, horrible scream that he definitely needed to change his underwear after this incident. That just scared the hell out of him, and he didn't come down for a long while out of his tree stand. But I've got another report that was from Panola County, which is just a little south of here. got a report from where was it? It was Delta County, which is west of here, that a farmer had a Bigfoot come into his hog pen, and we're talking. This is a guy that was a sheriff's deputy. His dad was a Dallas police officer, and he interviewed the guy, actually cast a footprint there, but the witness told him that this Sasquatch picked a hog up under each arm, stepped over a fence, and left with him. So you're right that, those stories are out there. There's some incredible stories out there, and it's just wild to think that these things are out there that can do something like that.
Mm-hmm. And Craig, you've been researching this for a long time, longer than I have with Bigfoot, but you've been doing this for a long time. And what are your thoughts, like, when you get these stories like this, like, do you feel like that Sasquatch is just a normal flesh and blood predator that's running around out there, or is there something that could be? Because they, like you said, they're found near cemeteries, and they're always doing. I get reports of all kinds of weird behavior, from the physical to the metaphysical. But where do you stand in all that? Like, are you in the middle, or where are you at?
I'm more towards the flesh and blood creature. Based on what I've seen and most of the people I've talked to, I fall along the lines that it's probably just I say just, but it's I think, an undiscovered primate. I mean, it's not, as far as we know, cataloged by science. I think that they are, as probably more intelligent than, the great apes, chimpanzees, gorillas, orangutans, that they are very curious about us, but yet they're very wary as well. They sometimes their curiosity gets them in trouble where they are seen. I mean, they are masters of their domain, to quote Seinfeld, I don't think that they dematerialize or cloak or anything that these, some people say. I think that they are just, like natural, like any other animals out there. You can see a white-tailed deer across the road and enter the woods, and as soon as it's there, it's so camouflaged that you can't even see it unless it moves. I think these things are like that they just are able to blend into their surroundings and appear to disappear, but I don't think they're disappearing or cloaking or dematerializing or entering a portal or anything like that. I think that they are a flesh and blood primate, just like we're humans are primates, we're apes, and I just think that they've evolved to walk bipedally and to be wary of man. But like I said, they seem to be curious too. I mean, I've talked to witnesses that have had them come into their campsite in the middle of the night when, everybody's asleep. I've had reports from, rural communities where people are going about, things in their house at night, maybe washing dishes or watching TV and notice, a large, hairy figure outside, even looking into their windows. So, like I said, while they seem to be wary and try to avoid man, they also are drawn to us to want to check us out and see what's going on. So, I formed the organization not as an experienced woodsman or hunter, just somebody who lived in the city who had an experience he wanted to try and get some answers about. And over the nearly 25 years that I've been doing this, I probably have more questions than ever. Unanswered questions. A whole lot of questions out there, not a whole lot of answers, and people that tell you that they have answers, that they know facts and stuff, generally are just making that up because nobody really knows what these things are doing or out there. People talk about like they do, but there's no experts in this field that know what they eat, how they reproduce, how they live. Everybody is, it's supposition and theories, not hard facts.
I was talking to Ryan Edwards, and he's a young guy, and he was at the Mineola Bigfoot conference. That's where I met him. I met him through Ken, but I actually met him formally and then we ate dinner together. All of us, we went to that cafe or whatever. But one of the things that me and him were talking about the other day, we were at the UFO conference together. And right. Daniel Jones, I'm sure you know him, he was at the Mineola conference, and of course, me and Ken and we all went to go, support him or whatever. And so I ran into Ryan there, and we started getting into this conversation about Bigfoot. And we got into the whole hominid thing. And of course, I get reports that there are people who are complete flesh and blood, and the people that are in between, the people that are on the fringe. I think they're both. Because me having this show, I have such a, either way, you know what I mean? And so I get these reports, man, that I just can't, and when I first started out taking reports, which was years before I ever started the show, because I thought, like you, I was going to write a book and I was going to do something, and you kind of went the route of doing conferences and bringing people together, which is amazing and it's admirable. That's awesome. And I went the route of the podcast. But, one of the things I when I started collecting these Bigfoot reports and I started poring over them, I had notebooks full of them. And then I said, you know what? I have them all just random all over the place. So for like 2-3 weeks, I remember one year in the fall, I just sat there right there in my little office, just sat there in the cool autumn breeze and just poured through them. And that's all I did for hours, is just, go to work, come home, and then I just worked on that. And it was all just the Bigfoot stories I had gotten. And so I started putting them in order. Now, this is back when I didn't know how to use the computer very well. Right. Finally, my friend Roger gave me a computer and said, here, put them all in this. And I did. And then my brother knew more about computers than I did. And even though he's the older brother, and he said, here, look, I'll file them away. And it took him another 2 weeks to put them from the paper files into the computer. Right. He said, this is a lot of work. Then he wanted me to pay him. And I was like, what is this, dude? But so we went through all these reports, and he's like, how do you want to file these? Because we had so many. He was like, you have some that are strictly flesh and blood, and some that are just kind of ethereal, and then you have some that are obviously not Bigfoot. I don't know what they are. And so we started like just filing them away, and we had about 50-50. We had reports that were just flesh and blood, and then we had reports that they were doing all kinds of weird things. The cloaking thing was something that I didn't have a lot of until I started the show, and then I started getting multiple reports of that. I had one or two, which I kind of filed them under one-offs, and then but then it became like people like that I know in my personal life, like a couple of hunters from South that were down in South Texas. They're from here, but they're in South Texas, and they saw a Bigfoot disappear before their eyes. And they were just like stunned. I mean, and one of them is one of my cousin's best friends, and he told me, he goes, dude, in my whole life I've never seen a Bigfoot. I've been out in the woods for 20-something years hunting, and of course when he told me that report, we were like in our 30s, and we all started shooting guns when we were little kids. That's just the Texas thing. That's how it is. I first shot my first gun when I was 6. I had a 38, and my grandpa told me to shoot it out the window up in the mountains of Candelaria. And so I was like, okay, and boom, and then I was like, whoa. And then my dad found out, and he got all mad. He was like, he has to be at least 6.5 to shoot that gun,
6.5.
So, it was just a thing. I played with knives when I was little. I cut my thumb. I still have a scar from when I was like 5. My grandpa would let me play with his buck knife, and it was just, I don't know. It was just how we were raised. people might think that's kind of wild or ignorant, and it probably is, but that's just how we were raised. But the thing is, I when you talk to these people, these hunters, like some of these people had never had any experiences with anything, and they had no reason to lie to me, to tell me, hey, I saw this, man. And then there were people who were giving me reports. One of them, we were talking about Huntsville. This was right outside of Huntsville, and it was in the spring of 1990. And these women saw this big. And I've been told this one. Another one's been Washington, that I covered not too long ago. And this Bigfoot, which looked like a female because they saw breasts, and then they saw a little one run behind her. The little one, when they were driving up to it at the last second, it just kind of like poof, it like glitched or moved. It was weird. And then they look, and it was standing on the other side of the road with the bigger female, which they knew was, and they were just like, dude, we should have by all rights hit that creature. But it's somehow, I don't know, it was like a glitch in the Matrix or something. I don't know. But they do things that just defy. But, you hear about people seeing people doing that. So it's not like, you get these weird reports of people. Like, like I was reading about the ghosts of Flight 401. And if anybody's never read about that, it is freaky. The plane went down in the Everglades, I guess, in Florida or whatever. And these two brothers came upon the wreckage, and of course, I think 79 people were killed. They managed to save 100 people or something, 99 people or something like that. But the company that made the plane, it was a Lockheed plane, but they took the parts and they salvaged what they could, and they put them on other planes. People were seeing the pilot and people that worked on that plane that had died. They were seeing people that had passed away on those planes, and they would just sit there staring straight ahead. And when they try to communicate with them or talk to them, and then they vanished right before the eyes of like everybody on the plane, and then panic ensues, and they're like, okay. So eventually, I forgot the name of the airlines that it was Flight 401. That's what it's called. I don't know, Tony. You could look that up for me. What company that was? But what's crazy is like the company eventually recalled every one of those planes, and they took those parts off, and then the haunting stopped. But the fact that they would see you see people doing that, so it's not like it's just Bigfoot doing it. Now I was talking to a friend of mine the other night, and it's actually, his name is Jesus Payan. Y'all can look him up. He's actually a sort of famous guy. He's on Breaking Bad. He was on I forgot the other show he was on, Better Call Saul. He's been in Steven Seagal movies. Anyway, he's an actor, stunt guy, and we had a long conversation. Really, really nice guy. He looks like a big, brutal dude, but he's really friendly. But that doesn't mean he's not. That just means he's friendly, Yeah. But I look like a nice, friendly guy, don't I? Yeah. But so sometimes. So we're sitting there, we're talking about this, and he said, "Think about this. What if, Bigfoot have ghosts?"
Oh, and that's something that I say as well, because, people report having interactions with ghosts of their pets, dogs, cats, sit down on their bed and they can feel they don't have a pet, but they can feel a pet they had previously jump onto the bed. So I've always said, maybe some of these weird things are ghosts of Bigfoot.
Yeah. Well, one of the things too, Craig, you'll get people who are absolute flesh and blooders when it comes to Bigfoot, but when it comes to Mothman, Dogman, Goatman, whatever, the plethora of inhumanoids that are out there, as Bart Nunley always calls them, inhumanoids, they believe that they are supernatural. And that's one of the conversations that me and Gerhard have had. I say Ken, there's so many Kens in this field, so I'll say Gerhard. But me and Ken were talking about that one day, and he said, dude, I really believe that Dogman is a supernatural creature. But whereas he's a flesh and blooder when it comes to Bigfoot. But the thing about Dogman is that people will see them coming out of portals just like they see Bigfoot. I mean, it's about the same amount. Linda Godfrey, one of the things that we came up with was that, well, I say we, I'm not going to take credit for her work, but it was her theory originally that we postulated on, and I subscribed to it, and I espoused that theory that they come through these portals and they become more physical, and then they they just become like us. But to me, that makes sense, because if you look at it from they're coming from the fourth density, if that's where they're coming from, indeed, then it makes sense, because that is sort of an in-between realm, whereas the fifth density would be like you're just completely spirit, you're just a ball of light, energy, whatever. These creatures would come from that fourth density, and they're really just spiritual beings like we are, that are taking on a physical manifestation, because that's what we're doing.
Right.
We're literally just spirits, and we're walking around in a physical body. So anyway, it gets really convoluted, and if you really start thinking about it deeply and going down the rabbit hole, and I have a theory about the graveyards too. I mean, when you look at Dogman and Bigfoot, and you start to think, okay, the portals will be between the spirit and the flesh. Now, what is that? That's death. Death is a threshold to another life, where you shed the flesh and you go into the spirit. That's why I think that maybe these things are found in places where there is death, because they are moving in between, and of course, a lot of emotions, and I don't care what anybody says, cemeteries are haunted. There is no way that anybody can convince me that they're not. I've been to a couple cemeteries and had weird experiences. Now, nothing dramatic, like I wasn't attacked or anything, but I did work at one. Forgot where it's at. I'm at the name of the place, Driftwood. And they were doing some work out there, and years ago, probably 15, 20 years ago, and I was out there and I saw something weird happen. There was one of those I forgot what they're called, with the deal that hooks and brings the dirt up. I sound like an idiot, and I work on construction sites all the time.
An excavator?
Is it an excavator? I don't know what it's called. Anyway, I played with one as a kid, the Tonka ones. I don't know what they are, but it has the shovel that comes up, and they were doing some work. And the light came on one of these things. There was one there were two different machines, and they were right next to each other, and I can't remember which one's which, but one of them, the light came on. And so I thought, somebody's out here playing around. We're like 11 miles from town, And so I got up and walked out there. First of all, it woke me up, and I was like, dude, great, now I got to do my job. No, but anyway, I walk over there, stumbling around. I threw the beer can over the fence, and I guess I don't need that, But no, just kidding. But I went over, and there was nobody up in there. And this thing had moved too, and I was like, whoa, and so I start yelling security, which I felt really stupid, because I didn't feel like there was a flesh and blood person anywhere for miles. And of course, I've told this story before, but I got back in my truck. I was like, I don't know what this is. This is weird. After a couple nights of that, I was like, I told the boss for that company I was working for, he's a really nice guy. I said, man, I'm done. And he's like, man, I can't get anybody to work out there. I'm like, well, I'm not doing it. And it wasn't anything really dramatic. And then there was another time we were in a cemetery, and the girl I was dating at the time, she's like, let's go to the cemetery over there in Kyle. It's like blah, blah, blah. It's haunted, blah, blah, blah. So we went out there. It's in the middle of nowhere. And there were graves there from like the 1800s. It was just an old, creepy place. My friend Bennett and his girlfriend were with us, and his girlfriend's like, I heard something. And then we did hear like footfall, and it definitely sounded bipedal. And then we heard somebody like clear their throat, and I thought, we're in the middle of nowhere. And I thought, there's only like an old abandoned house with an electric fence around it, and there's a few cows in there. And so we heard that, and then I heard like a moan, and I thought, but it sounded weird. It was like as if like an animal was mimicking a human. If that makes any sense at all. It just was really weird. And so we were like, let's get out of here. But I have story upon story, and I'm going to do an episode just about haunted cemeteries. And I think what it is when people pass over, they follow their family members to the grave. And I think after that, they depart. The reason I think that is because there's a bunch of religion that says that that's what happens. I'm not saying that's what I believe, but 100%. But that could be. You're allowed to say goodbye, unless you're really bad, and then you go to that unmentionable place. Everybody knows what that is, California. And if you're really good, then you get to stay in Texas. That's just how it goes, right? But so I'm gonna Huh?
The natural order.
The natural order of thing. So, Craig, I can't wait to see you up there at the Bigfoot conference in Jefferson. It's going to be hopping. I know it's going to be a good time. It's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to it. I'm proud to be a sponsor.
It's only like 3.5 weeks away now at this point.
Mm-hmm. Very close. We're very close to going up there. Another question is, and maybe this is for off air, but I tell it like it is. Do I need to bring something like booze? Are you going to have plenty of booze up there?
Well, there's a liquor store here in town.
Yeah, because I know that there is some pecan rum made by Texas Spirit of Texas Distillery, and it is awesome. And the only place you can get it is down here. So thought maybe I needed to bring some of that. So I'm going to have some for Barton when he shows up.
You might want to, because there is a. Well, we probably should say it on the air.
Let's not even go there. So, anyways, I wanted to give him a plug.
I do have one question for you about Dogman.
Sure.
Now,
no, that never happens. I'm also psychic.
Is Dogman, because in my mind, when I think Dogman, I think half man, half dog.
Mm-hmm.
So, following along those lines, which half is half? Because does Dogman have a red rocket, or does he have...
Oh, my gosh. It's not... The bottom half is just people... It's a guy wearing pants, and the top just looks like a Labrador. Let's put it that way.
What a crazy week to ask, right when we have Banjo, the expert.
Banjo... Got a little long-haired chihuahua. Where is he?
That's where he is.
Let me see him. I'll introduce you to everybody. Oh, Banjo's been on the show before. Come here. Come on, buddy.
Go ahead, buddy.
Come on, buddy. He's looking for somewhere to pee. That's what he's always wanting to do. Come on.
Go ahead.
Was he asleep?
Yeah, he's tired.
I think he's very sleepy. He's been on camera before. You're not camera shy. There you are, Banjo. Say hi to everybody. Wave. Hi. There he is. So, yeah. So, I think if Banjo was a dog man, he would be a very tiny dog man, very diminutive dog man. But, along those lines, my grandfather had an experience in Alexandria, Louisiana, one time with a dog man. Of course, my grandparents didn't...
That's not very far. That's not very far from where I had my Bigfoot sighting.
No, and it's interesting because my grandmother's the one that told me about it. My grandpa had always said they saw something weird on the side of the road. He never did elaborate. But when we were in Pinto Canyon out in West Texas, when they lived out near Marfa, because I wanted to go out and look for the Marfa lights, and he was just like, "Oh, ain't nothing there." But he did claim to see these like little pack of coyotes that stood up on their hind legs and ran. So he's had, my grandfather before he passed away had literally 2 dogman sightings. Didn't know what they were. He called the little coyotes. He called them little coyote men, and he would call them manitos, which is not. He didn't speak proper Spanish. He was white, but he would call them, which is little manitos.
So coyote man is a real thing.
Maybe. I mean, I've never seen one. I've heard people talk about it. I have a friend of mine that she's going to be in my book, and Ken did the interview for me because I'm just really busy. So him and Barton have been helping me do interviews and stuff. But she talked about seeing a coyote stand up and run on its hind legs. And I know that Linda got in a report what she called the half-pint trail runner, which looked like a little coyote or something running on its hind legs. So maybe that's a thing. I don't know. The one that my grandparents saw when he was a truck driver near Alexandria, they said was a big hulking looking creature, and it was squatted down, and it was what looked like it was eating a small alligator. No, I'm not joking. They said that's what it looked like. It had like something in its hand, like a lizard or an alligator. It was small, but for an alligator anyway.
Yeah.
And it was taking bites out of it, and then it just dropped it and stood up as they drove by it. And my grandmother was like, it was the most terrifying, ugly creature I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
But anyway, all right, Craig, well, I'm going to let you bounce, man, and I am definitely looking forward to the conference. Folks,
okay.
The link is right there.
One more question, Josh. One more question about Dogman.
Okay, is it a jokey question or a real question?
Well...
And it's not dirty, is it? It can't be dirty.
No, it's not dirty. It's not dirty. But here's the deal. You said that, the bottom half is like a guy wearing pants, and the top half is a Labrador. Yeah. That's what I've always wondered about, is if man or dog wore pants, would they wear the pants like on the bottom half of their body, so all four legs would go into the pants?
I get what you're saying. Or if they wear
or
them,
do they stand up and they wear, or they have their pants like their back half?
two legs. And they usually wear Levi's. Now, when somebody tells me they've seen one wearing Wranglers, I know they're lying, because Dogman doesn't wear Wranglers, dude. They're really picky about what they wear.
So they wear Levi's.
Yeah,
There are
and
a
back in
couple
the
of
80s,
those
they would
guys.
wear like the white Guess pants. I know that was big back then. And in the
In the
early
70s,
80s, bell
Did
bottoms,
they wear bell bottoms?
elephant's feet, and then they also
And
wore
in the
parachute
90s,
pants.
In the 90s, they had parachute pants.
Yeah,
As
there you go.
compared to the Bigfoot, which you will see around in those pink, where they have the
Bigfoot
pink.
wears overalls. I
Oh,
know that
I didn't
I have
know
that on good authority. All right, so we're going to do it up there, Craig, and I will bring some of that pecan rum. So shout out to Texas, Spirit of Texas Distillery.
Well, just to let everybody know that, if they want to come to the Bigfoot conference, they can find it on Facebook. Look up Texas Bigfoot Conference. You can find out how to register and be a part of the event. I also have another event coming up the following month in November,
The UFO
a
conference.
UFO conference, where I'm encouraging attendees to dress up like their favorite alien. And then in December, in nearby Marshall, only 20 minutes away from Jefferson, I have my Bigfoot Film Festival, and we are screening 7 Bigfoot films in one day. It is going to be action-packed.
That day
7
is going to be
films,
it's
one
going to start
screen.
at like 10 a.m., right? And then it's going to
10
go
a.m. and finish up at about 2 a.m.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, and I believe you said Lyle's going to be there for that one too. I think
Yeah,
you said
I was going to be there. We had. Speaking of Bastrop, I know I'm going up into my time now, but when you were talking about
No,
Bastrop,
go ahead.
that's where Eduardo Sanchez, who also was the guy behind the Blair Witch Project, but he also wrote and directed his Bigfoot movie Exists, that was filmed in 2013 in Bastrop. And it's the best Bigfoot movie ever. But he was here in Jefferson, Marshall last year and screened Exists here in town. And he's going to be back next year in Marshall for the Bigfoot Film Festival. And we're going to probably even do a special screening of the Blair Witch Project with him, the director there, that could have a Q&A about the Blair Witch Project also. So there's lots of stuff coming up, as well as the Falk Monster Festival that I do in June of every year. So there's that coming up next year as well.
And
all of this information is on Facebook.
And the Falk Monster Festival is in Arkansas, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah. Which, that's something, if you've never been to Falk, Arkansas, it's less than an hour from Jefferson here. And typically on Sundays after lunch, a lot of people, drive up together up to Falk to go to the Monster Mart and see Boggy Creek, where, the legend started, the legend of Boggy Creek.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when we were driving through, Lyle was giving us the 411 on that whole area. We went through Texarkana, and he did a deep dive studying the town. The movie or book, whatever it was, based on the movie was Town That Dreaded Sundown.
The Phantom Killer.
The Phantom Killer, yeah. And you can see the park where one of the murders had taken place, and then he was talking about the Falk, the Boggy Creek, and the road that you would take to go there and whatever. Yeah, I might have to take you up on that Falk Festival. Might have to go check it out. I'm a busy guy, but I'm looking forward to this. It's going to be like a little vacation for me.
Yeah, and it's in the same state where you live. Well, Falk is right across the border. But,
Arkansas, but the Bigfoot Festival in Jefferson, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, 3.5 weeks away.
Yeah, and so, folks, the link is right there, and it's 2022 Texas Bigfoot Conference. It shows you where to get the tickets at, and it's right there in the live chat at the top of the screen in the live chat. So, folks, get your tickets and check it out.
And Paranormal Round Table is a sponsor of the event. You'll have a table there.
Along with Barton Nunley.
You and guests, Barton Nunley, and with Paranormal Round Table swag and maybe even broadcasting. Who knows?
Yeah. And if you need me to get up there and tell some stories about how I smack these Bigfoot around for their beef jerky, I'll do it, man. I'll get up there and I'll flex, dude.
Well, you flex just standing there.
All right, Craig. Well, it's always a good time talking to you, man. We always have fun. Me and
Yes,
Craig
sir.
just talk a lot of. It's fun to talk to you, man. You're a colorful guy. I was going to
thank you.
ask you what you said. You went and looked. You went to looked at some cars the other day. Did you ever buy one of those, or what'd you do?
I went to look at some cars.
Yeah, you were telling me all about it. You said you went to Paris, Texas.
Paris, Texas.
Yeah, you said you were up in Paris, Texas, and there was like some classic cars that you were looking at.
Oh well, I'm a car guy, so if there's a car show somewhere, I'm always digging on there. As a matter of fact, this Saturday I'm going to the Dallas area because the Hot Wheels Legends tour is in town, and my car is entered, so it's not going to win any prizes, but it's going to be out there where they have the full-size Hot Wheel cars and stuff. It's a pretty good deal. I've gone for the last couple of years, so I'm going to that car show on Saturday of this week. So anytime there's cars around, I host a car event here in Jefferson in March every year, March Miata Madness. I used to have a Miata, really trick Miata before it got totaled, and I still host the event. So help my buddy here in town that has a Big Cypress Corvette weekend, over 100 Corvettes here in town in Jefferson, and that's the first weekend in June. So yeah, I'm always into car stuff, as well as Bigfoot stuff.
Are you going to take me back to your place and let us drive your classic car?
Well, it's not a classic, but it's still a pretty cool car.
Yeah, because I wanted to just drive it into the lake.
Oh no, we won't be driving. You could be driving out amongst the alligators. You might want to get one of those amphibious cars that would go in the water.
I'm not worried about alligators,
like
man.
the banana splits used to. Oh, that's probably before your time.
No, I remember. I know. I
Splits.
used to watch the reruns. I know what that is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I caught them live. You caught them on rerun.
Reruns.
But
That's
I
right.
wouldn't suggest driving a car out of Cattle Lake unless it was one of those, because there's gators out there.
Yeah, there is.
Maybe we could do an alligator wrestling demonstration if you'd like to do that while you're here.
Well, as long as it's a small one and you could tape its mouth closed, and then it's all good.
Oh, it's easy to hold their mouth closed.
Exactly. That's why I said tape his mouth closed.
You don't
and
want
I'll
them
do it.
to open you don't want them to open the mouth, because it's the closing that's the bad part.
Yeah.
You can hold them closed, but you don't want it to close on you.
But we'll give them some gummies to make them relaxed.
Well, make sure you do bring some gummies when you come up.
Oh, okay.
I hear tell that there's a private party on Friday night somewhere here in Jefferson that I can give you the 411 on.
Well, there was an after party at my conference too, and that was the big hoo-ha. Everybody was like, there was all these pictures, and Barton had swords and was passing them out and everything, and I was just like, I was about to lay down and go to bed, and my wife's like, you need to get up and get out there and talk to your fans. There's people out there. You need to. So I went out there.
Talk to your peeps.
Yeah, and I did. So, all right. So hopefully,
did you swallow any swords?
No, thank goodness. And I didn't play with fire or anything else, but other people were. So but.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, Craig. Well, I'm going to let you run, man. It was good talking to you as always, brother. And I'll see you there at that conference, man. We will be there.
Friday.
Yes.
Be there.
We will be there for sure.
Okay.
All right. I'll see you, Craig.
Sounds good.
All right.
See you soon. Bye.
Bye. So that was my friend. Craig Woolheater. Folks, say a prayer for Steve Stockton. Stockton had some really high blood pressure, and it's nothing. He's okay, but he needs to get his stuff straightened out and whatever. And I care about him. He's a good friend of mine. I had to talk with him the other night, and his blood pressure got really high, and his meds are kind of out of whack. So, everybody, let's say a prayer for him that he gets healthy. And so, anyway, for that, I'm going to run to the restroom really quickly. Give me just a couple minutes. I won't take more than 2 minutes, I promise. And I'll be right back. And then we're going to talk some vampire reptilians, okay? And I'll be right back. No, okay. So we lost some people. Everybody runs away as soon as I'm run to the bathroom for a couple minutes.
There's still 400 people. Please hit that like button, guys. I mean, thank everybody for being here.
So I was going to record tonight, but it looks like I may not be. So
Barton is in the chat, I think.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
Here's the thing. I got a few stories here, and I'm going to get into a couple of them. These involve reptilians. Reptilians. This one, and I went over this story with Barton before I came on the show, and just kind of vetted it a little further, and he did verify that this, that this area is full of these caves. This story comes out of, and I can't give you the town that it's closest to because this person still to this day is they are, how do you say it, Tony? They are, what would be the word? Terrified, I guess. Worried. Yeah.
Wary.
Leery. Did you say leery?
Yeah.
So this person gave us a story, right? And this was in northeast Tennessee where this happened. And it's funny because I was just talking to Steve about Steve Stockton, and he's actually from that area, East Tennessee. But one of the things that this person, two different things happened to them in their life. The first one was when they were a kid. They were riding their bike with a couple of their friends, and they decided to go in and explore a cave. Now, they had been told that they're not supposed to go into these caves. You're not supposed to mess around with them. Stay away from them. People go missing. This happened in 1977. And so they were children, and he was a little child, whatever. And so the oldest boy in the group was 9, I believe. I think it was 7, 8, and 9. And then the other one was his first cousin. And then it was his first cousin's best friend who was 9. And the older kid said, hey, don't be chicken. Let's go. And, so he kind of peer pressured him, and they said, okay. So he said he was at the back when this happened. But as they were walking into the cave, they went further and further down into it. The older of the boys had come prepared. He had a flashlight. Well, I'll say that's prepared. He's not prepared, but he's got a flash. He had a flashlight. Let's put it that way. And if that's being prepared, but he had planned on it. He had his little backpack, whatever, and he had a flashlight in there. And as they get further and further down into this cave, there were some spots that were kind of narrow, but they could fit. They were small children, and then they come into this opening, and then there's kind of like a descent where you can kind of climb down. And there's like this pit, from what he told me, and they could kind of see down, and they heard crying like in the distance. And when they wanted to check it out and hear what it was, the older of the boys was like, let's go. And then him and his cousin were like, no, let's get back. We shouldn't be down here. But then they heard the wailing of like people like crying. It was more than one person. So the older the boys like, I want to go down there. I want to see this. And so he decided to go down a little bit of ways, and they were behind him. When the oldest boy they turn like a corner. Once they get down to this pit, they come back up out of it, and they turn this corner. The oldest boy screams, and they all take off running. Now, this is where it gets it gets weird. The youngest boy, which is the one who gave me the story, okay, did not see anything at that time when they were running back and they were going across the pit. At that point, he was the last one in the pit, but his cousin was almost across it. This is what he said, okay? Now, this is what he told us, right? Like, right, Tony? We're just the messengers. Don't shoot the messengers, all right? These things popped up out of the dirt. Literally came up out of the dirt. He said there was like 1, 2, 3. The next thing, there was more than he could count. And they were making these weird hissing noises. And he said that they were like covered in dirt, and they just kind of shook off, and they all just kind of made this sound. And he said, dude, their heads looked snake-like. And they began to sort of crawl out of the ground, out of the dirt. and they ran up the embankment, I guess you would call it, and then out the cave, and they were gone. Well, a couple days later, they're outside and they're playing and they're talking about this. The oldest boy, who had kind of peer pressured him into going, and he, like he said, he wasn't a bully, but he was kind of like the leader of their little pack or whatever. And as he wanted to be like his cousins, you know, he looked up to his cousin, and his cousin was like tough. He could always fight really good. And he said his cousin was athletic. He wasn't. So he was kind of like, you know, his older cousin was only a year older than him, but he was much bigger. And he looked up to this other boy. So it's whatever that kid said. Well, that kid had an older brother who was like 14. And that kid had a friend that was like 16. So those kids were like, yeah, right, you saw this. You saw snakes come up out of the ground and look like people, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So the one kid said they had to get a camera and go snap photos of this. They wanted to take pictures of this thing. So the one kid had a camera. Well, his dad did. And he went and stole it from his dad, because he asked his parents if he could use it, and they said no. So basically, he stole it, the little thief. Anyway, get what you get. So anyway, he takes the camera, and these boys go back to the cave. Now, this is where it gets really, really, really bad, because he was being peer pressured into going, and he said, no, I'm not going to go. I will not go. So he didn't go. But he's telling the story of what they saw. Bizarre. Okay, so what happened was, and he had told me that he had never told anyone this story, and he was interested in telling Barton Nunley and me this story. And Barton, if you're listening, you know, he knows of you and your work. And so he was kind of like, you know, he goes, I would like to tell you and Barton of this story. But he had such a hard time telling me. It took him 2 days to tell me. So I personally believe him. I mean, I believe of what he claims he saw. He was in such a panic when it happened, though. As a child, he said, you know, I still question if I really saw it. And if I wasn't with 2 other people, I wouldn't, you know. His cousin since has passed away, but the other boy lives at one town over. And they still know each other, and to this day, they're still kind of friends. He thinks because of this, you know, just kind of bonded them. But the other boys, they went to this cave. The next day, this was on a Friday evening after school. The next day, which was Saturday, they were all freaking out, and everybody was talking about it, you know, amongst the neighborhood kids. And what they claimed was there had been people that had gone missing back in the 50s and 60s, you know, different people in that area, whatever. This is what he told me, that his parents had said. That there were people that for decades there had been people that had gone missing or had seen weird stuff, you know, whatever. And so he was saying that what these other boys saw was just crazy. Like they kind of reluctantly, the 2 boys that had ran, the first boy, who was the 9-year-old, he didn't see what him and his cousin saw. So when he went back, he was just, you know, he wasn't as afraid, because he was basically going on knowledge of what this guy that told me the story and his cousin saw. So the cousin refused to go, and so did he, because they saw what was down there. But this other boy and his older brother and his brother's friend had not. Well, they recruited a 4th boy, so it was those 4 that went. Only the one that went back was the 9-year-old, that was the oldest of the original 3 that went down there. And he was the youngest with all these other kids. When they went back down into the cave, they went past the pit. Nothing happened. That pit was clearly defined because it was a soft black dirt. And when you walk in it, their feet would kind of sink down into it, and you had to keep walking or you would sink. Not like quicksand, the way they described it, but it was, you know, muddy, and you would sink down into it. So then they get across this pit. When they get to the other side, they began to walk around the cavern, and they hear this wailing and crying. And when they get to this corner, like this sharp turn, and right there is an opening, there's a small room, and there are these people who are chained up to the walls. And each one of them had like holes in their neck. like they had been bitten. And the way they described it was like they had been bitten by snakes or vampires. And one of the women began to scream, get help, you know, and was the only one at that time that was really conscious, and the other ones were just babbling. They weren't able to make any sense. And she said that they're taking our blood. That's what this woman told these boys. They just ran out of there. They heard something coming, and they heard this hissing noise, and they just ran. Well, of course, the next day, they weren't supposed to be there, so they debated about telling their parents, which may have been the problem. They didn't tell their parents right away. Well, they did eventually tell their parents. The parents said, okay, if this is real, this is true, then we need to tell the police. So they told the police, the sheriff's department, and everybody went down there. When they went to the cave, when they went to that particular cave, they found nothing. They did, however, in the one small opening, they found a little like antechamber where these kids had been, and they saw holes in the walls where possibly the chains could have been. Then when they went further past that, they went down into another opening, and they found bones of dead animals, nothing human. That was it. So they were just like, okay, kids' imaginations, right? I mean, they're imagining this, and they couldn't provide any more information. They couldn't even really give good descriptions of the people that they saw. They said there were 8 to 10 people. They couldn't give good descriptions of it, and so there you go. I mean, a lot of times when you're in a panic, and you're a child especially, you don't remember details. When somebody starts giving you all these like really advanced details, and they're like, and then his blue shirt had red streaks at the top, you're kind of going like, really, dude? Because that's kind of, you know, hard to do when you're in a full-on panic. Like with my Dogman encounter, I don't remember I don't remember the tail. You know, I'm sure it was there, but you know, when I go back and think about it, I don't, you know. And the people said, did it have a smell? I don't remember that either. I was too busy like freaking out, and people were like, oh, you were crying, and that's none of your business. No, I'm just kidding. I wasn't crying, but I felt like it. And you know, and like I wobbled over to where the fence was, and then I ran the rest of the way up into the house, whatever. You know, things happen so fast. It's hard to sit there and go, you know, thank you for that donation, Melissa. We definitely could use it. But you're sitting there going like, it's hard to sit there and, you know, process, you know. So these are kids. These are kids. Their minds aren't even fully developed.
I was going to say, it's definitely difficult for a regular, you know, adult to handle a high-stress situation and remember details and specifics about certain things. I mean, it happens all the times where people will be retelling a story, and because they're retelling it and reliving it again, they're able to remember something new and something that they never really even thought they remembered or thought about. So, I mean, it definitely, if it could happen for adults, I can imagine how much more stressful and difficult it could be for a child, especially such a young age like that.
Yeah. Here is the weird thing. You remember the camera? Mm-hmm. The camera, one of the older kids did take photos. He took photos of the people that were chained up. He had photos. When they got outside of the cavern, when they were running for their lives, you know, as they thought they were anyway, he dropped the camera. One of the police officers, this is what he said. The guy said that one of the police officers found it, and they said, we're going to hold this for evidence. And then later, that camera disappeared. And they believe that they were visited by someone, and they took the camera. Because later on, in that police officer's career, he told this guy's dad that that's what happened. That they were visited by people from the government, and they gave them the camera for evidence or whatever, and they never saw it. They didn't see the film because they got a call, and they were told to hold on to the camera because it was evidence or whatever, and they were going to take over, and then that was it. When they were running out of the place, same thing happened. The last boy out, who was the 9-year-old's older brother, was a 14-year-old. He was in the back. He turned and looked back, and he saw the same thing. These creatures coming up out of this like murky soil that looked lizardy, snake-like, whatever. Reptilian vampires? Folks, I don't know. You got to draw your own conclusion on that. But consider this. I got another one. This one was from upstate New York. It was up near the Rochester area. I'll just tell you that. Very similar story. This guy claims he was out walking his dog. He was in the woods. He was with his half brother. He said they had the same mom, different dad, whatever, and they raised together, but they were separated. They split up at one point. One went with one parent, one went with the other. And they reconnected, and so they were spending a lot of time together, getting back acquainted, whatever. They hadn't seen each other in like 20 years. So he's like, dude, our second day out, we were walking our dogs, and he had come down to visit, and his wife and my wife got to know each other, and it was like, it was awesome. Everything was going good, and then they go out into the woods, and they hear chanting. They come upon kind of like what Arturo Mata, who came on my show, what Arturo ran into at Pedernales. These people were making animal noises, according to them, and it was crazy. They get up into this trees that are kind of made in like a circle. Oh, this happened in the late 80s. He can't remember if it was 88 or 89. Because here's the thing. It happened more than once. This first encounter happened, I believe he said in 88. He was pretty sure it was the fall of 88. And then the second encounter happened to him and his brother in 89. The first one, he had heard it. Like he just heard it, and he thought, oh, that's weird, So he turned around and went home. He went back, saw evidence of people had been out there, and there was blood on a rock in the middle of this. But it was it wasn't a huge rock, But this time, it was when his brother was with him, and it happened again. Now, this time, I think he said it was in the fall of 89. And they went for a walk, and they hear this. There are people out there, and he was like not in the mood to go check it out. But his half brother was like, "Hey, let's go look, go see what it is." They get out there, and they see these people. Some of them are dressed in black, and then there's one person dressed in white. They get close enough to where they can kind of make out, and it was right at dusk. It wasn't even dark yet. They get close enough to make out the people's faces, and they were stunned. The people's faces, they thought they were wearing masks, and to this day, he says, I don't know if they were masks. So you got to take that into account. Maybe they were wearing masks, he goes, but it didn't look like it. Their skin looked like it was real. Like he goes, it almost looked like the best, special effects makeup. They had scales, like on their face and on their neck, and they were wearing black, and there was a woman who looked like she was half asleep. She was still conscious, but she was in white, and she was laying on the ground. And he said that she just looked like a normal human female, but she looked like she was out of it. She was kind of moving her head back and forth like she was on some kind of drug. And they heard a hissing noise. That story I've had for a while, but I was waiting because there's others. But they ran, and he's pretty sure that they went unnoticed. Now here's the other thing. You remember our kid that told us the story? Well, he's a grown up. He's older than me, but he told us the story about what happened in the first story. Get this. This is a weird thing. He ends up moving. Okay. He moves to Albany, New York. Coincidence? Very, very, very strange. Upstate New York, right? I thought that was just an odd deal. I was like, wait a minute, that's weird, because I had a story out of Rochester, New York. He believes that he was visited by one of these creatures when he moves to Albany, New York in his early 20s. He gets with this girl, and she's like, they go, and she's from upstate New York. They met in college. They both dropped out. They were in Florida. And then they took off, and they went back to her hometown to go live. And he's out in the woods on the edge of town, not woods, but he said he was walking out with his girl, and these guys in a car pull up, and they asked him for directions. Well, he gave them directions. He gets back into town, and they go and they sit down to eat dinner at the diner or whatever. One of the men approaches him when his girlfriend goes to the bathroom and says, "And we know who you are, and we know what you've seen. Don't ever talk about it." And then he walked off. And he said when the man was wearing a suit, it was like Men in Black, literally. He had his hand on the table. He could see up the man's hand what looked like patchy scales. Now, I wasn't trying to be a joke. I was trying to make a joke. Tony, you know this. But I said, could it have been psoriasis? And he was like, hell no. And he kind of got upset with me. And I was like, look, I'm not trying to be, because he knows me. He's seen the show. He knows I'm a jokester. Well, he's just recently started because of his grandson. But the thing is, I make jokes, right? Okay? I'm not trying to be cute or funny. I'm being serious. All right? I had to ask that question. Could it have been psoriasis? God, Anthony, is that his blowing his nose?
I think so.
Jeez.
Well,
be quiet in there. Jeez, trying to do a show.
It is your job to ask those kind of questions.
Yeah, and of course, I kind of laughed a little bit, but I wasn't trying to be rude.
Yeah.
But we had to ask the question. I mean, could it have been? And the guy says no. He goes, it looked like a reptilian. He goes, dude, I'm telling you, they. So I'm not saying there's like this network of reptilians that are like anywhere from Tennessee to upstate New York, but what I'm saying is that there's probably a network of reptilians from Tennessee to upstate New York. That's what I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. All right, and then
it's very clear. I don't understand how
it's
that.
Very and they don't have psoriasis, folks. Their skin is just
they believe in lotion and
scaly.
Yeah.
And we're not making fun of this guy for his story. I mean, he's only told a little bit of it to his grandson and his wife, and so they were like, hey, let's, there's a show and you can talk to this guy and he talks about all kinds of weird crap. So they sent him my way. But so Pink Dahlia says, hi, PRT fam, GTSY, great to see you guys. Have fun and be safe during your visit with the Kentucky Wild people. I know they're looking forward to it. Yeah, that's Barton and Letitia. They're coming, and we're all going to hang out, and we're all going to ride up to the conference with Ken and Ann. But here's the thing. Amy, thank you for the give me your thoughts on these reptilians. I mean, I got another one I could do, but I'm saving that one we're going to do a standalone episode, an hour-long episode. We're going to get back into those because of all the horrible comments that were left about how terrible my live stream is. I cried with my head in my hands for hours. I consulted Mushu and Banjo.
And I cried for hours.
And we all cried, and we decided that we're doing a terrible job and a disservice, so we need to get back to doing the hour-long episodes where we just get in and get out real quick. We're like, story, cryptids, ghosts, UFOs, and then we run, and then we're done, and boom, it's over.
I know what
awesome.
Craig might have said about there not being any experts, but trust me, he doesn't know what he's talking about.
Craig is a good guy, but he's a little misinformed. Craig doesn't know that I am truly an expert.
Yes.
And now I have made that perfectly clear and proven this to my circle of friends within this community.
Well, as an expert, you proved your valuable knowledge to me, and I was like, well, that's expert knowledge.
And then you proved yours to me.
Yes, because I just repeated what you said. So, I mean, it works both ways.
And it goes back to when Armando was on the show. We all just agreed that we were experts. And we were just like, this is the way it is. It's just how it is. And so we have really enlarged skulls. What we do before, because we have such big brains, what we do before the show is we actually have to drain some of our brain fluid so that our heads shrink a little bit and they look normal on camera. Because we have to have so much knowledge. I have an entire compartment of my brain that's just dedicated to Bigfoot.
I usually am carried around on a wheelbarrow because my head is just way too heavy to carry around.
Okay, well, you know what? I'm usually carried by a tow truck. So
okay, I didn't know this was a competition, sir.
It's not, but yeah, it is, actually. It is.
Well, I'm usually carried around by Banjo. He just drags me.
Yeah, Banjo's actually a Dogman, as we've talked about earlier. He wears his pants a certain way.
Thank you, Matt, for the $10 donation. Thanks, Josh, for all you do, and thanks for listening to some of my story. I hope we can get together when things calm down and I can finish telling you the rest. But always enjoy you, and God bless you, man.
Thank you, Matt, and I have every intention on taking your story, folks. I'm backed up on stories. I have just a lot to pour through, and then sometimes I have to access my colleagues' files to make connections, like threads, like I had with Josh Nanokio with What Lurks Beneath. Got a weird report of a bear type person that looked like they had one arm was just clear, exposed, but it was like this burn thing on their arm that looked blue, and it was like, that's what fascinated me about the episode he did with the Yellowstone. I was like, whoa, that's crazy. And so I had actually talked to Jessica Jones about it. She's the remote viewer. Anyway, I don't want to give it away because we did some work with her. Me and Barton did. And I was on her show. If you didn't get to check me out on Spaced Out Radio from last Saturday's show, go check it out. And then she did an hour with Jesus Payan, who me and Jesus hooked up and started talking. And he does go by Jesus, not Jesus. So he does have an epic name. But yeah, we talked and we compared notes on some weird cases and stuff that we have seen and gone through. And so you go down the rabbit hole with all these different people. And I mean, from every walk of life, every race, religion. One of my friends, he's Haitian, Stefan. He's actually a Muslim, and earlier today, he works for us. He's been working for us 2 years.
I mean, I've seen Stefan, I think.
Huh?
They've met.
They've met him. He came on the show once, but we were talking today about it, and he was talking about some different things, and we went over a case about giants. Now, I do have stories about giants. One of them I will talk about when the episodes drop. And yes, I actually recorded with Abe Seas. Now, if you guys know, especially from the rambling of the madman who talked about me rambling, he was once the bad guy. Well, the truth is, me and Abe were friends, and DFT, I'm not even going to get into who it is, that's just his initials, started some stuff, and Abe got involved. And me and Abe exchanged words. Well, we're both alpha male type guys, and we started talking about, why don't we box? What's up? And so he was like, what's up? And I was just like looking forward to punching people. I didn't care. And he was the same way. And he got mad and said some things. Well, we calmed down because we are both brothers in Christ, and we are both alpha males, and we talked it out. And then we ended up talking, and we worked it out. And he apologized profusely, and I said, I'm sorry, and everything, and we let go. And he had a lot of pertinent information, and then I recorded with him. And we got into some really weird stuff. When you hear his story, it's trippy. You'll realize how he got into all this and where it started. Well, same thing, with Jesus, Payan, like same thing, like it started when he was little bitty. Maybe like a year older than what Abe was, because he went through something, and then a lot of times people will have it's like a generational thing. Like there'll be like a like some sort of like I don't know what you say, like brujina, like a curse, like it, like magic, and it'll be generational. Like it'll go on and on. It'll follow their blood, yeah. And then there are people who are abductees, and it begins with that, But I think it's all related. I really do think it's all related, and everybody's entitled to their opinion, and they're entitled to believe whatever they want to believe. But I can tell you right now that I really am sitting here in this chair telling you that I think it's all related. I think that people have these experiences, and it begins somewhere. And these people, they are experiencers. They have multiple experiences. Think of Ernest, and I mean, like he showed us the Duende thing or whatever, but he also had the Dogman on his property near Spicewood. And then later out near the Hernandez, other side of the Hernandez Ranch area. What's crazy, though, about all this is that when you hear person after person after person telling you the same thing, you start to realize that when you're listening to a story about Bigfoot, or you're listening to a story about ghosts or UFOs or whatever, oftentimes the person that's telling that story, that where the story comes from, has had multiple things happen to them. Not just one or two. They're not just like, it's not just like a one off, in their life. It's very rare. Now, people who are what they deem themselves to be serious researchers and believe a lot of the flesh and blood, whatever, they get really excited over someone who's only had one experience because they don't believe that a person will have more than one. They think that the odds of you having one is like lightning striking you. And that's not true. Oftentimes, people will have a haunting and they'll have Bigfoot activity, UFO activity, and, A, B, C, D, who knows, all the above, going on in the same area. And it will center around one or two people. But a lot of these researchers, they are strictly just, I'm into Bigfoot, and I'm going to take the Bigfoot part of it, and you can keep the rest. I'm a ghost researcher. I'll take the orbs and all that other stuff, and I'll turn Bigfoot into a ghost monster, and you can keep the rest. And then the UFO people are like, that was definitely UFO activity. That's an alien. I don't care to hear about the other stuff, the haunting in the house and all that. That has nothing to do with this. These are extraterrestrials and blah, blah, blah. And me and my colleagues here, at PRT and Martin, we've all, get my wife. She gets stories too. She fields reports all the time for us. It's always like that. They'll be like, I have a Dogman story. And typically you'll talk to them and they will have others.
But you have to ask because they don't.
Mm-hmm. They don't always volunteer it because they think that all you want to do is take their Dogman encounter, and maybe that's what I'm looking for at the time. But I want the whole enchilada. I want to know what all is on that plate. I don't just want, part of the enchilada. I want the whole enchilada. I want the beans, the rice, the guacamole. I want the tortillas. I want everything.
I mean, that's how you figure out patterns. You don't look at one piece of the puzzle and be like, oh, that's it. That's how you solve the puzzle.
You come to a conclusion. And
keep buying more puzzle boxes and just taking this one piece out. And it's like, that's not how you do it. You got to look at everything and put it together and see if it fits. And you look at some of the other ones and see if that's how it's supposed to go. Or if you start seeing something different in one area as compared to others with certain activity, then you're like, oh, maybe, UFOs aren't around Dogman because, they don't like them or something. And you just start noticing things like that. But you don't do it if you close yourself off and, you kind of blind yourself to the hidden possibilities that you're not really even being open to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the girl by the cemetery says, I have a gargoyle story and a video of what happened. Let me tell you something. I don't know your name, girl by the cemetery. Let me tell you something. When I first got the gargoyle stories and I did the whole show on gargoyles, we got it piecemeal, and it was one of them was like literally the one story I got was 11 years from the other story. And they occurred two different parts of the country. One was near Dayton, Ohio. One was near Alamogordo, New Mexico. And it's really odd because the other one was given to me by a childhood friend of mine that lived in West Texas, Northwest Texas, where I lived when I was little. My dad was working at a power plant. And so not one of these people messaged me and said, hey, I have a gargoyle story. One of them I just kind of stumbled upon because the person knew the person and said, hey, I'm going to tell you this. And brujeria. And so anyway, Jordy Vargas says, yeah, that's what we're talking about. But this thing, when you started looking at it, like that's what I came up with was like, this is a gargoyle. Like this sounds like a gargoyle. And so I told the other people, I was like, would you consider that it looked like a gargoyle? And they were like, yeah, kind of, yeah, I guess that would make sense, And so for the first, couple years on the show, I had all these stories that I had been given over the years because I've been collecting them for a long time, and I didn't really know what to call them. So literally, me and Tony here, or Mushu as you know him, and Anthony and Nelly and Armando, our old co-host that sadly passed away last year of COVID, we would brainstorm and go over these stories together, and of course Scorpion and D and we're all kind of a team here at PRT. But we would go over these stories and we'd be like, what do we call this? Like, what are we looking at here? I don't know how many times me and Tony have sat here and tried to figure out what to call something.
It's the same thing about when we met Michaela, I believe that's her name, at the gym. And it's like, it's just real quick, just, the story just fits its own little category. And then sometimes you get these stories where, like, they fit a category, but it's like that category isn't really well defined yet. So you don't really know how to, like, you put it here for now because it's like it has some of the similar things and you're not really sure what this is yet. And so, like, you just kind of store it off. But yeah, that's one of those things where we're looking at it. We're like, a flying humanoid. Like, what do we like, stone creature? Like, we had no really idea.
Yeah, and that girl, Michaela, the personal trainer or whatever, she had a Hat Man encounter.
And we said it the last time I was here, I believe, is that we just looked at each other like we knew instantly.
We've heard it so many times. Now we know what it is. I mean, people would say, "Oh, it had like." She didn't call it the Hat Man.
No. She looked at us and she thought it was just a regular ghost, and she was like, "Oh, it just had a hat."
Had a hat, and we knew what that was. Now, the child in the one case that I'm going to be writing in depth on in my book, it's coming up pretty soon about that. That case, the child did call it the Hat Man because he's a little kid, and so he was just like Hat Man because he was always wearing a hat, and it scared the crap out of the kid. And then you had this Dogman, which nobody was calling it a Dogman. They just said it looked like a werewolf, and it was appearing at his. Now he called that a dog. He just said the big talking dog. And I, you ask this kid, he's a little child. It's hard to tell, like a first grader, not even a first grader yet at that time, and say, hey, what did this look like? And then he's like, dog, the talking dog. Did it kind of look like a wolf? You don't want to lead him,
It's hard.
You had to get the parents to ask those questions and say, what did it look like? And of course he's drawing these crayon drawings of this creature or whatever it was, Then you kind of put it together, and of course we're like, Dogman. That's what that is.
And especially for a child like him, probably he's only ever seen a wolf in like a cartoon form. Maybe like the big bad wolf, which is also standing up. But I mean, it just looks like a dog. It's the only thing that would be recognizable.
And it wasn't overly terrifying because it had never snapped at him or snarled or done anything up to that point, except try to get him to go outside. And then his mother sees it and she freaks out, and then the thing, lunged forward, and that's when the child was scared and crawled under the table or whatever. But I mean, when you deal with these cases and then you're putting it all together and you're saying, okay, when I walked into that place, this ninja blender went off. Okay, I can tell you right now, that's poltergeist activity. And I'm not saying there was some electrical whatever because the washing machine bounced up and down. I'm like, I'm good. I don't need to be here for too long. And we took off. But the thing is, when we went further in with this case, we started to realize that there was a shadow person there, and then there was a Dogman running around on the property. You're not going to sell me on the idea that they're not connected, okay? What are the odds now? If this is a flesh and blood creature that just runs around in the woods and is that way all the time, what the heck? What are the odds that it's going to show up at a poltergeist haunting? Now, somebody told me, and this kind of makes sense. This is a researcher. She said that the Dogman might have been attracted to the energy that was being, created or whatever by the haunting. So, you're kind of going like, okay, I get it. Maybe that could be. But it just seemed too convenient. The Dogman was like, hey, come outside. I'll protect you from the Hat Man. And the Hat Man's terrorizing this kid. The Dogman obviously wasn't nice because it snapped at the mom and she felt like it was going to kill her. And then later it broke into the house. And there was a bunch of stuff that happened. Blessings says, I worked at the Rockdale power plant. Oh, my dad did too. My dad worked at the power plant in Rockdale. There's some weird stuff near the power plant. That is the only reason why I entertained the other researcher. Otherwise, I was like, you dumb. You ain't got nothing to tell me. I know what I'm doing. And I went like, well, that was it. No, seriously, what happened was I'm pretty thick-headed. I don't listen to other people's opinions or facts about things because I know everything because like Tony said, we are experts. But I did take this person's opinion into, And one of the things I learned was like there are a lot of sightings near power plants. I know there's one out there in LaGrange that I'd gotten a couple reports from of Bigfoot and Dogman. Two guys driving into work on the day shift, and they were coming in, and it was still dark. It was winter, and they see what looked like a Bigfoot, and the next day they see something standing beside the road that looked like a wolf on two legs. And these are two guys that just rode to work together. The Rockdale power plant, there was this flying thing that this guy had claimed that he saw. When you started going into the mines, there were some people that did the strip mining out there. There was one guy that claimed to see the same thing. They worked two different parts. The one guy worked in the smelter in the Alcoa, and the other guy worked in the mines. Two totally different areas. They didn't even know each other. But the power plant used to be, I think it was like IGC or something like that was a company that ran it for Alcoa, and then eventually it was another company, and then it became Alcoa's power plant. Alcoa took it over, managed it, staffed it, whatever. And what they did was it was aluminum plant, and the power plant was there for that. And most of the people in Rockdale. Now, this place where this haunting took place would probably be, as the crow flies from that power plant, I would say probably 20 miles, 25 miles, maybe. It's very close. And then if you go to the other side, going toward Lexington, in between Rockdale and Lexington, that's where I get that you got a story, just very bizarre, of Dogman, and I've seen reports of Bigfoot in that area. So yeah, it is, and they are close to the power plant. There's no doubt. Why that is, no idea.
Basis of energy, maybe.
You can speculate that that's what it is. But I mean, now think about it. If it is not a physical creature, then why would it seek out hauntings? Why would it seek out power plants?
Well, like Craig said, we don't know how anything feeds. We don't know how anything eats. What if, like, to power some of the more spiritual aspects of what they do, they would need to feed on something more spiritual, like fear or something like that. And when they can't feed on it, then they start delving into their physical forms, and they're stuck like that. That's just throwing out theories, but maybe that has something to do with it, and maybe that's why they can sense when other spiritual creatures are near or causing problems, because then it's like, oh, there's a basis of fear now that I can go feast on.
They can go feed.
And that, even though he probably was, that Dogman was serious about, like, hey, I'll protect you, but like not from, like, I'll protect you from him, but not from me. Yeah.
Come outside and let me physically eat you, because they also seek blood, which is weird. Some people have even, I'm not talking one or two people. Me and Barton have been doing a series of interviews, and we've been interviewing a lot of people as of late, and I believe he's in the chat, and he can attest to this. A lot of the people are telling us that these things are seeking out blood. Some have even gone so far as to call them vampiric, even though they look like werewolves. I know that Scorpion is not an expert. Nobody's an expert, but he has done a deep, deep dive on vampires. Wouldn't you agree? He knows a lot.
He almost immediately named the vampire that you're thinking of, that you couldn't. Like...
And there was a type that actually, when they die, they're werewolves, but when they die, they become vampires. And and even when they don't have a corporeal body, they become sort of a wraith type creature.
Well, blood.
Let me give you
I was going to say, blood has always been like this weird. In almost every culture, there's some creature that like feasts on blood specifically.
So. Yeah, Barton right there in Humanoids of Barton, and Humanoids of Barton only says true. Yeah. So Barton, you're listening. You know what we're talking about. Here's the rub. We have a friend. You know a few of these guys. We trained with your dad. Your dad was a MMA guy, kickboxer. He was a good friend of mine. And Tony trained with some of the guys that I came up with years ago. Shout out to Deuce and those guys that fight. You train out of Blindside and then a little bit out of Black Sheep. But these guys are fighters. And one of my friends was a kickboxer, and he trained in Thailand for years. And he moved back to Hong Kong. Yeah, just in time for the riots and all the other whatever was going on. Well, he had a little nephew, and they are Cantonese. They speak Cantonese, whatever, but they have and I'm going to butcher this name because I don't speak a lick of Cantonese, very little. I can ask for the restroom, a sandwich, place to sleep. That's it. I don't really know much, okay? And it is a different language than the main language of China, which the most spoken language of China is Mandarin. There's actually 26 other dialects. I don't even know if that's correct, if there's more than that, but there's like accepted dialects, whatever. There's a bunch of them. There's a bunch of different provinces. But anyway, Hong Kong at one time was its own place. And the British had control of it as the port, and they just kind of paid to have it and had control of it. And eventually, I think in 1997, I think that's when it went back to the Chinese. But it's been not a fluid, good relationship between Hong Kong and mainland China. They're just not friends. But anyway, it's called I'm going to try and say this. In Sing Long, like sounds something like that. That's the best I can do. But it is known as a vampiric ghost. Oftentimes, a relative who was committed black magic or sorcery when they were young, in their past life, I guess, or before they died. Okay, so, and they also refer to it as a hopping ghost.
Oh, you mean the Jiangxi?
Jiangxi, well, that's one way to say it, but the way that they pronounce it is like Ing Sheng Long or Ing Sheng Long, something like that. But anyway, I think the way that you're pronouncing it is the Mandarin version.
I think so, maybe.
The Cantonese version is different. Now, I don't want to mess it all up. Hi, Jessica. I see you in the chat, or the Cryptid Huntress, everyone. Jessica, she's the one that interviewed me on Saturday. Show her some love and go check out her videos, and I'll check out her other videos too that she's been on with Space Out Radio. So anyway, this thing had attacked his nephew, and they know that it attacked his nephew because the little boy could barely walk. One day his foot was hurting, and then he took off his sandal and he showed his uncle, who's a friend of mine. We'll call him S. And he was like, "What's wrong with your foot?" And he's like, "Something's been in my room. It's been biting me." Okay. When they looked on further review, they see that this child's foot is swollen, and there are like what looks like a human bite all the way around the foot. And they're like, "What in the heck?" Like human teeth marks, but then fang marks. What looks clearly, and they thought this is the Ing Sheng Long or Ung Zheng, whatever it's called. I know I'm saying it wrong, but anyway, they said that's what they thought this was immediately. And so they took him to what we would call a curandera, like a witch doctor or whatever, a healer. And she told them to put these eggs under the bed and do all this other stuff as rigmarole. Didn't work. They did actually get a Christian who was Catholic. He came, did a blessing, said prayers, put holy water, and then they themselves put salt in the corners of the room. And for whatever reason, it stopped, but not completely. It plagued the kid. He finally moved to another room, and it followed him to that room. But it started to attack one of his siblings that was in that main room where he was in. So it was, and eventually they moved out of that place. And once they left that place where they were living into another area, then it stopped. So maybe it was localized there. They did say, though, that the activity decreased significantly after the priest had came. I don't know what the priest did. I didn't even get into all that. But this child was definitely being attacked, and something was jumping around in the room. He said it would go from one wall and bounce off to the other wall, and then it would like land on the foot of the bed. And it wore clothing, and it looked like a person. But when it would go to bite him, his whole mouth would open. He said the head would fall backwards almost, and this huge mouth would come out. And he would bite its foot. Sometimes there would be marks, and sometimes there wouldn't. But it was definitely drinking blood. So that's vampiric. But here's the thing. The way that the eyes were described to me were kind of slitted up. Sounds almost like a reptilian. So definitely, yeah, Stephen, I know. Anything with O, culandera is male, culandera is a female. I don't know which one they went to, whether it was a male or a female. I just know that they went to, the priest was definitely a male. I don't know if the witch doctor woman or male was a male or a female, because he actually didn't say. He just said they went to a witch doctor. I kind of assumed the gender. My bad. I shouldn't be assuming people's pronouns. I should have said they, them, it. Because it's just horrible when you assume people's genders.
His doll.
We can't be naming babies, okay? You can't name it Jennifer or Mike, okay? All right, you know why? Because that baby hasn't decided what his gender is yet. So, when it gets older and it goes to public school and gets indoctrinated, then it will decide to be the opposite of whatever gender it was born. You call me Jennifer. Or, my name is Mike. That sounded kind of like a Mike Tyson, but... Yes, Grace, you were absolutely late, and you need to go back and watch this from the beginning.
Twice,
because it's chock full of information, and not just silly skit. Hold on one second. Whoa, what was it? Somebody's calling here. What was it? Hello? I don't appreciate you talking about my culture. You make fun of a hopping vampire. That's what I am. Why are you get the words right? Oh, God, I'm sorry. You're racist. Whoa. I think that was the hopping ghost, folks. I shouldn't assume it's cryptidness or it's creepiness or it's inhumanoidalness. Reptilian vampire ghost monster guy? Girl?
Can't be assuming it's species.
Cantonese, Mandarin, possibly other type of province, is a Manchurian candidate. I don't know. We got to be careful with this, folks. I know Mike Tyson's in rough shape, man. That's horrible to see, dude. Mike was a true champ. Just a few months ago, wasn't he beating up Roy Jones, a friend of mine actually? But I met Roy years ago. I mean, he's a really nice guy. But yeah, I mean, the thing is, I mean, when you look at these cases, they kind of sound very similar, right? You can make a connection between the, what did you call it?
The Jiangxi?
The Jiangxi. Yeah. Because I can't say the other way because I sound stupid when I say it. You make a connection between the Jiangxi, you make a connection between these reptilians that were living in this cave, vampires, Dogman.
Well, the thing about the Jiangxi is that they're not really vampires. They're kind of like undead. Yeah. So they're not really like determined if they're zombies or vampires.
Then why are they eating people's feet?
Well, I don't know.
Or are they trying to drink people's blood?
Or they're doing all that. I mean, I feel like there's definitely better ways. I think there's actually a story of one woman who at night her head would detach and it would fly around, and also...
Oh, that's a Filipino story.
Is it?
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the Ashwang. I believe that's what that's called. Hold on. I'm getting a call again. Let me see here.
Oh, no.
Oh, my gosh. It's the Philippines, dude. Uh-huh. Oh, okay. Oh, hold on. It's wrong of you to try to get these mixed up with two different countries. Okay, sorry. Jeez.
I just feel horrible.
I offend a lot of people, folks. I'm trying not to. I'm trying not to offend the ghost, monster, zombie, werewolf, vampire, Bigfoot, reptilian, person, not person, undead thing, ma'am, sir, baby, child, whatever.
Whoa, calm down, Wolf. We're at 29% paranormal now.
We're trying.
You go 1% more, we might be going crazy.
The meter's going, woo. Chris Nazi's going, I'm waiting. I'm here with my panzer divisions. I'm waiting to strike. Calm down, sir.
It'll be unprecedented. 31% paranormal?
Yeah, it would be. That's not good. When you start going past the paranormal into comedy, get your neck. It's just, you know what I'm saying? It's like you're going to lose your head, homeboy. You know what I'm saying? You better watch yourself. Check yourself where you wreck yourself. You know what I'm saying? Bigfoot's foot in your ass is bad for your health. You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying. That's what I'm saying. Keeping it real up in here. Another phone call. Yes, hello. And that's culture appropriation, fool. Oh, sorry. Jeez. Damn. Getting my butt chewed by everybody today.
A lot of phone calls.
Oh, God. The phone's ringing again. Jeez, what is this? Okay. And I prefer the term communist American because I actually like Stalin's politics better than Hitler. Chris, knock ya out. Okay, sorry, Chris. Sorry.
Well, Wendy makes a great point. She says, I'm an amateur now, not a pronoun. I don't think we're either of us are pronouns, so I think that's why we're failing so
I'm
much.
a pro. I'm a pro at everything I do. I once picked up a stick and invented baseball. I once took a pigskin and inflated it and invented football. You know, when I came out of my mother's womb, I cut my own umbilical cord and I drive home with my mom in the back seat. Pulled into Wendy's so she could get something to eat. I'm really cool like that, so I gave her a treat. See, I'm even rapping right now because I'm a rapper, and you didn't know that. I thought all this up while I was sitting in the crapper. Like, it's so hard to be like I'm a rapper, yo. Like, okay, so am I. I can just let me sit down and spit hot fire. Because you're messing with me and you're raising my ire. New kids on the block, they're all punks. I'm the one you admire. Right? You see what I'm saying?
It's very impressive.
It is, right?
It's very impressive.
That's right, yeah. I'm running these streets with my 2 feet.
Exactly. Came out the womb with full knowledge.
That's right. I was born in an Arctic, I was born in an Arctic cave, and I was suckled by a she-wolf. That's how I was raised. I didn't drink milk. I sucked the snake's fangs. Wu-Tang. Ooh, so hard to do. I will say this, though. If you are a person who has encountered one of these creatures, use the correct terminology. Bigfoot doesn't like to be referred to as Bigfoot because, like he, she, it has told us on many occasions, not all of them have large feet.
Some of them very moderate feet, and they feel, a lot of pressure when you're expecting a Bigfoot, and it just doesn't work like that.
Bernard Fox says it gets harder each time we relive life. You're absolutely correct. Bernard said something earlier, too, that I thought was interesting. I'm going to go back, and there was a comment that you made. There was a comment that he made earlier that was like, I saw it on there, and I was like, yes, okay, here's it. Here's Bernard Fox said, thought in humanoids show up at same location, maybe scavenger behavior. One catches an energy meal, and all want some of it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And he used the correct terminology for me and my money, which is in humanoids, which was coined by Barton. Cryptid Huntress says, that sounds like my ex. He was the best at everything.
You see it.
Can be. I am.
In nature, I mean, if a lion gets a kill, everything comes around and just watches and waits. And vultures are in the sky above. Yep. Hyenas are in the prowl, lying down.
Jackals.
Everything.
The hyena shark. And then they want some. Mm-hmm. Everybody wants to eat, but don't nobody want to do the work. Like a preacher once said, everybody want to go to heaven. No. But don't nobody want to die. Yeah. So, Greg Wood says prayers for Carrie Arnold's family. Yes, really awful. What happened to Carrie Arnold? Now, that's another thing. Somebody who's been named Barbara, I don't even want to give her whatever, keeps hounding me. I didn't hear anything said about Carrie Arnold's passing during your interview with Cryptid Hunter Jessica Jones. Okay, first of all, I had talked about it the night that it happened, like last Tuesday, because Vault was messaging me, Vault from Nightmare Nation.
Vault made it sure that it was very important that you...
And I announced that toward the end of the show, at the end of the show. She keeps saying that nobody has spoken about it, nobody's announcing it, coming after me in a snarky, passive-aggressive way. It had been talked about on social media over and over again, and I didn't want to put everybody in a somber mood by talking about that before my set with Jessica Jones. Okay? We didn't diss him and disrespect him in any way. Okay? Everybody is very upset about it. He was good friends with Bettina. She knew him a lot better than I did. We, through her, had talked about doing a collaboration through, because she wanted to put some stuff together and get everybody together, because she's like me. She's a uniter trying to get people to work together. That's all the interaction I had with him. Knew who he was, respected the guy, never had a bad word to say about me, as far as I know, and I never had a bad word to say about him. It's unfortunate what happened to him. Also, Mark Hensley passed, if you know who that is. There were 3 or 4 people who all passed away. Chris Garitano talks about a guy that was one of the original MK Ultra explorers. His last name was Fagan. He did a tribute to him, and he died, I think, either the day before or the day after Carrie died. This all happened in like a matter of 2 days. 4 people dropped dead. Terrible. Different ways, too. It wasn't all the same. Carrie died in a horrible accident. And we all are going to go on the other side at some point, and I encourage you to get yourself right and get yourself together, because it could happen at any time. We're not promised it tomorrow. Now, far be it from me to sit here and go, I don't care about that. I'm not going to talk about it. That's not what happened. And I'm getting tired of this person hounding me every place I go, saying that I'm not talking about it. So, say what you will about me, but I don't disrespect people that I don't know. I didn't know him well enough to, say a bunch of words. As far as I know, everybody I've talked to that knew Carrie better than I did, he was a stand-up guy. And he will be missed, and definitely was when you go and look at his stuff, it's like Brenton Solomon. He had a lot to offer this community, and he's gone but not forgotten. So that being said, I'm going to say goodnight. Folks, from everyone here at PRT, Mushu, Anthony, my wife Nellie, everybody that's involved in the show, D, who's out there working, Scorpion, who I don't know what he's doing. I think he's hanging out with his family or something. Everybody from the ghost and vampire, reptilian, Bigfoot, Dogman, werewolf, man, woman, whatever they are, different ways you want to call them. Good night.